Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Virginia City Council Chambers. This is a regularly scheduled committee of the whole meeting. I will call this meeting to order. Today's date is Tuesday, March 2nd, 2021. For those who are listening at home, we have in our audience some of our staff personnel. The council will be present in its entirety. We have City Administrator Britt C. Bennis, Finance HR Director Sherry Erickson, Community Development Planner, John Sullivan, and then we have Eric Witch from GSDW, Brian Silber, our Park and Rec Director, the Lundin Group, that's our promotion and for the MEC, and we have our City Attorney Brian Lindsay, Fire Chief Alan Luce, and I don't know who's in the background, I can't recognize him in the mask. Matt Reed from SCH. Nicely done.
Camouflage work.
Nicely done. Okay, thank you. So we'll call this meeting to order. We have a full agenda today, and I'll turn this meeting over to our City Administrator for administrating this meeting, Britt C. Bennis. Britt.
Thank you. The first item on the agenda is a MEC-related item, and the next few items are MEC-related, so I'm going to ask Brian Silber to come up and discuss. The first one's a review of audiovisual RFP for the MEC.
Good morning, Brian.
Good morning, Council. As I threatened at last week's City Council meeting, I have a lot of items to bring before you today. The first one is reviewing the bids that we received for the audio-visual RFP for the MEC. Remember, this is the audio-visual package that the public will be seeing. These are the drop-down projection screens, the projectors, the TV, the wayfinding monitors, the menu boards in the concession stands, the sounds or part of the sound system that is in individual rooms, also in the outside of the building as you approach the building. So this is that 21st century audio-visual package. We did receive 2 bids. After vetting these, DSGW is recommending that we go with the low bid from Tierney Brothers. The bid was $370,251. Now, how that impacts our budget, the funding for this does come out of our FF&E budget. Looking at our FF&E budget, this was higher than I had originally budgeted in the FF&E budget for this. However, it still does work within our FF&E budget, allowing us to get the things that we want, need, and desire. If this is approved, our FF&E budget, we will have 67% of that budget remaining, with a projected, including our leftover contingency, of just over $1 million left in the FF&E budget.
Thank you, Brian. Councilor Johnson.
Mayor, on page 13 of the packet, it lists the address as 500 South 12th West Street. I just want to make sure that if that's not correct, we change it accordingly. It is, I don't know what page of their packet it is, but it's at the top of the page. Just want to make sure that we. And then my other question is this the system that connects to cable?
Yes, media outlets are able to connect to this system. There are several jacks throughout the building that they can plug into to tap into the sound system, so that when they are recording and or broadcasting an event in one of the ballrooms or one of the other rooms, that they are not picking up the sound as you hear it right now through the speakers, but they are actually going through the sound system, so the quality that they are recording or broadcasting would be of a higher quality of sound.
I guess my overall concern is that during a skating program or a hockey game or a basketball game or whatever happens to be in there, the conflict between state-of-the-art system that we have, and I know this is not anything you have to do with directly, but I think it's something we need to be aware of, and us transferring that over to our local cable and having it broadcast. That's one of the challenges we have from this system, $80,000 in this room, and we have to convert it down so that it works on the system. And I know that's not, but I just want us to be aware of that moving forward, because next fall or the next hockey season, I want folks to realize that we've provided state-of-the-art equipment. What happens when it leaves our facility is kind of out of our control somewhat.
In the process for designing this, the city council had approved for us to work with a company to design the system that meets the needs. Before doing that, when we were in our design development phase for the MEC, we actually did have a meeting where we invited all the members of the media. We had both our local access represented, My 9 was represented, and I forget the other station that had sent somebody. But Channel 3 had sent somebody down. So we took in all of their recommendations of not only spots where connections could be made in, but also the types of systems to be utilized. Now, our local access is not as sophisticated as your major networks are, but we wanted to make sure that what we are providing would be at a high quality. So if we were to bring in something major that somebody wanted to do a high def broadcast of, that our system would definitely be meeting those needs.
Thank you, Brian, appreciate that.
I have one question, Brian, to clarify the audiovisual. When is the announcement system, in other words, if you want to make an announcement, whether at a meeting's place or an individual or throughout the entire building, is this part of that audiovisual when you do the intercom announcement system, or is that separate? So if you want to, say, for example, you want to notify the public of, or say you want to evacuate a building or portion of the building, how do you communicate that to everybody? Is this part of that audiovisual package, or is it this is a separate system?
This will be able to be run through that system, so you'd be able to interrupt any broadcasts you had and make a public service announcement that there is some event that, but above and beyond that, you have your life safety systems too that are in place. So your fire sprinkler alarms that are both audio and visual that would be interacted in that type of a situation. But if you're evacuating for some strategic event or some event, hazard event that happens, you can override the system and do an announcement through it.
Yeah, I understand that part. Thank you for the clarification, Eric. But just a simple announcement, say there's a convention going on and you want to get a hold of somebody. And so you could key up a mic in a specific room from the master unit or whatever you want to call it, and say, John Ward from Komatsu, you have a call or whatever the case may be, instead of having to make these paper deliveries back and forth like I've seen in the past. So seeing how these operate, that's kind of what I'm looking for the purposes of having a state-of-the-art system, as Councilor Johnson says, for the purpose of these conventions and conferences.
Yes, then it would be able to be controlled by zone, so which rooms that announcement actually goes to.
Thank you very much, Eric. Councilor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. Brian, what was the original budget?
Originally had budgeted 275 for this.
Okay.
And this is at 370.
And then what date did we approve going out for bids? I can't remember.
That was 2 committee of the whole meetings ago, I believe.
And then just the 2 submitted?
That is correct.
Okay. And I guess I don't know how the process works, but is it possible prior to selecting that we would invite them to come and go through everything with us so that we have an understanding?
Mr. Wedge, could you answer Councilor Paulson's question?
Yes, I'm sure that, we could invite both parties to display and do a demonstration of what their capabilities of their systems are. The council did approve hiring a vendor to design this system. DSGW assisted with all the technical specifications to make sure you were meeting the funding requirements of your funding agreement. So I'm sure if you wanted to have them come back in 2 weeks to a committee of the whole, they would be more than willing to do it. Your low bidder did announce too, there was a change in their bid time. They did say that they can meet the completion time of September rather than their 270 days. That being said, time is of the again, we want to slow the process down and make the right decision for the city. We don't want to, but you do want to open in September. So if we wanted to bring these parties in for a demonstration of their systems, we should do that at the next committee of the whole meeting. Oh, yeah, Britt said we could do a special meeting and we could bring both parties in, so.
Okay, yep.
Thank you for that. I don't know if that would be the will of the council, but that might make me feel a little bit more comfortable as to what we're actually getting, what we're dealing with. And then to try to understand, Counselor Johnson, I appreciate the input on, the integration that we're having some challenges with. So maybe we could have that discussion as well once we bring those folks forward for a demonstration. That would make me feel much more comfortable. Just, this is a high amount and it's a little bit above where our budget was for FF&E. So that would make me feel a little bit more comfortable just to understand what in fact we are getting for that amount of money.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. The bid process was apples to apples. It was the same system, the same requirements, and so it's likely going to be the same type of how they work the system. It's just the cost is different. But for us to have an opportunity to take a look at that, I think is really, I agree, we should do it as quickly as we can. The same thing holds true whenever we hire something. You want to see the demonstration first of how, see the presentation and how they operate. So that makes a lot of sense to us because in the past we haven't always done that. I'm not saying in the recent past, but so we have a better understanding what's going on. So we'll go to Councilor Freely. Councilor Freely.
The 275 even seemed like a lot of money for a new system. And I see here with reference to Arena B that the city and your crew is going to be responsible for actually dismantling, taking down the center cluster. I know that's relatively new equipment, but that's somewhat surprising to me that we're actually reusing equipment and having to incur labor costs ourselves in addition to the prices that we're paying. So, I'm sure it's good enough equipment to transfer to the new facility, but that's probably why the bid is maybe $54,000 less than the competitor. I don't know, but
Eric?
We were directed by city staff to adaptively reuse that existing system, and Brian can explain to you why we reuse that system. That system is a year old, so rather than throwing the baby out with the bathwater, we were adaptively reusing that. And Brian, so graciously with his staff, said that they would be able to dismantle it ahead of the miners coming down, and then it can be repurposed. So the bids, both bids, respectively, probably would have been higher had we provided a new system for the secondary arena and or had we had them do the labor to take it down. So it was one of those value savings items that Brian was looking to utilize. And Brian, I'll let you speak more to that.
Prior to the 2019-20 hockey season, we ended up replacing the existing sound system in the current miners. It's 4 speakers with the wires running down to the control box. When we purchased that system, the intention of that system was to become the sound system for the second arena. Moving it will be very low labor cost for us. It's literally taking our scissor lift up there and bringing down 4 speakers, and then our sound system is in a box and we pick it up and move it to the next building. The most difficult part will be fishing the new speaker wire through the conduit that is in the building to come up and plug everything back in. So it should be very low labor costs. And that was the intention, and had informed the council back in 2019 when we were purchasing it, that was my intention, was to move this system with us to the new building.
And that same process would have been required by Hunt as well?
Yes.
Okay, and the same equipment used and so on?
Don't know if they would have bid out the same exact equipment, but we had purchased a sound system that we wanted for the building, knowing that we'd be moving to the new building.
All right, thank you.
One quick question before we go to Councilor Bearable. So if we're going to move the system over, is it compatible and can it be integrated with the new system that we're putting in the miners, or is that separate altogether?
Yes, it can connect.
Thank you. Councilor Bearable.
Brian, just a quick question, or for Eric, either one of you. What is the drop dead date you need to get this started and moving to get it completed by September?
Eric?
I'm just looking at the completion time that they put for the bids. Originally, when we vetted the price, your low bidder had 270 days, which puts us beyond that deadline. The next bidder, Hunt, had it, but we did get a letter that was submitted in your packet that said that they would be done by September. So, my suggestion is these lead times, and still with the coronavirus, some of the lead times on pieces of equipment are still slightly delayed. So I would anticipate, if the council would so choose, that we would do a special meeting to bring your low bidder in and have them review the system as soon as possible, so that we can just make sure that we're meeting that completion date.
Okay, with that being said, Mayor, I think I agree that we need to have a special, and it shouldn't be just a committee meeting, it should be a council meeting, so we make the decision at that time. Because I think you're gonna have some, knowing how things are taking and deliveries, I've had stuff even it takes, they say 2 days, and it takes 5, 6, 7, 10 days sometimes to get stuff to my home even. So I would make a recommendation that we set up a special council meeting so we can make the decision at that time once we hear the input from the two companies. Thank you.
I think we leave that up to our city administrator and staff with Eric and Brian to get a hold of the low bidder company to see when, as soon as he can get up here, and then notify us and schedule a special council meeting. Does that make sense to everybody? Instead of, scheduling a council meeting now, not knowing if this low bidder can be there at that time. So does that make sense to everyone?
I have a concern though. I think they're getting the money for this project. It's up to them to figure out the time. We set it. That's how I've always worked business. If you want somebody, and if giving you a price, if they can't make it, you don't deserve the business. I've never seen you sit on something to let them have the auspice of a time and stuff when you're paying them to do the work. They should be able to get somebody up here on our schedule. That's my philosophy, because I've worked with a lot of stuff in bids over the years.
Well, I agree that, it's on our time frame, but, there could be we should know that they can meet that date. So if we set a date for next Monday and they can't meet that date, and so we say, okay, if you can't make the date, you're out of here and we're going to hire somebody else. Well, that doesn't make any sense either. So however we do it, we need to send this council date as soon as possible. So before we do that, we'll go to Councilor Paulson. Councilor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. Are we looking solely at just bringing in the lowest bidder, or would we like to have both of the entities come forward? Or is there a legal process for that? I guess that's a question as well. So I don't know who needs to answer that.
Brian, can we bring both? We do have the low bid on board. I think doesn't the state require us, when we bid these projects, you need to look at the low bidder unless we can find a way not to have that low bidder based on legality?
Correct. If we've embarked upon a bidding process, the low bidder is the one we need to go with unless we've done the best value bidding
Thank you.
So then we would just be asking the low bidder to come and make a presentation.
Yes.
Okay, then I'm comfortable with that and I guess city staff can set the date after they reach out to them.
Well, looking at Counselor Bearaboo's concerned about setting it right now, so we should look at our schedules and see what is available, and then pick a date, and then call this company to see if they can make it. I don't know where they're from, I can't recall, but I think I would ask Eric and Brian for some information about that, how we move forward here. Eric?
I do see that you have other business on your council agenda today, so I would recommend that you set a date right now, and then before you adjourn your meeting, I will make a call to the low bidder and verify if they can meet that date, and before you adjourn today, we should be able to have an answer.
Okay, thank you. We need at least 3 days' notice, so keep that in mind as we take a look at everybody's schedule. I know that there is meetings scheduled for Friday. I think we have a personnel committee meeting scheduled for Friday. I have other Zoom meetings with the legislature on Friday. So if you set it on Friday, I can't be here. And so, but we need at least 3 days' notice. So today's Tuesday. The soonest we could have it is Friday. So we should look at sometime early next week, Monday, Tuesday, whatever. But I open that up to the council for consideration. So let's go move on to the next item on the agenda. Before we do that, let's set a date. So, Councilor Bearaboo?
Mayor, I think your auspice is right, either Monday or Tuesday. Tuesday's a council meeting, so we have to, early in the morning on that day, or Monday is usually we don't have much business on Monday. So if we get it set up on either one of those dates, I'm comfortable with that.
And I thank you, Councilor Bearaboo. And I do think that those who are working and have businesses and jobs and have set aside a specific date in order to attend some of these meetings, it might be prudent for us to set it on Tuesday if that's amenable to everybody. And just the time on Tuesday would be up, whatever works for everybody. So I'm available Tuesday whenever. So if anybody has a scheduling conflict, let's take a look at our calendars and make that decision right now. So thank you. Councilor Paulson?
I'm available Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah, Monday or Tuesday. Tuesday, Councilor Johnson? Yes. Tuesday? Yes. Tuesday? Tuesday good for you? Okay, Tuesday, okay with you, Councilor Friedli? Okay, if it's all right with everybody, I'll make a motion. I ask for a motion from the council to set the date for Tuesday. What is that? Next Tuesday. Tuesday, thank you, Pam. Tuesday, March 9th at 9 a.m. Does that work for everybody? Okay, Tuesday, March 9th at 9 a.m. Looking for a motion.
Also move that, Mayor.
Support.
By Councilor Bearaboo and supported by Councilor Freely to set a special council meeting date to look for the audiovisual demonstration for the MEC from Tyranny Companies. The date is set for Tuesday, March 9th at 9 a.m. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Brian?
The next item that I have on the agenda is consideration of approval of MEC 21 and 21 promotion. In your packet, have a letter for you that outlines some of the next items that we will be discussing. In the memo that I have sent you, there is the first table that you will see in that memo is a table outlining those who have contacted us to date and what they are looking at doing. One of the comments that we have been hearing from everybody is, I want to tour the facility before I sign on the dotted line and book my event. Well, right now, it's really difficult to give a tour of the facility as we're currently under construction. And I completely understand the apprehension that somebody would have in booking a wedding or a major event based off of artist renditions. Our artist renditions are beautiful, but individuals may have the hesitation of, is the artist rendition going to be as nice as the finished product? So what I would suggest that we do, just to begin the process of generating some revenue and get some events on the agenda, is to start a 21 in 21 promotion. Now, what this 21 and 21 promotion is, and I would propose that we just do it for the month of March, is basically a sale. 21% off if you book in the month of March of this year. And that would be for any booking after we open in September, or any booking after September for the year 21, or any bookings that are made for the year 22. But they would have to do their booking in addition to placing their 25% deposit down at that time of booking to get this 21% off.
So if they get 21% off and they have a 25-cent booking fee, the goal and objective is not for them only to put down 4%, right?
Correct.
Okay. Right, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, Counselor Johnson.
Mayor, Brian, is that 25% booking fee non-refundable?
Correct.
Okay.
That is a non-refundable booking fee if the renter cancels. If for some reason the city needs to cancel, we are going to bend over backwards to either find them a new date, work out something that is amenable to both them and us, or give them a full refund. An example of us needing to cancel an event would be, say COVID. Right now, we have right now, the South Room is being used by the Health Department. So we have had to move all of the events that were scheduled for actually the North Room is being used by the Health Department. So we've moved everything that was scheduled for the North Room into the South Room, and we've been trying to work with anybody who had a rental in the North Room. Either that or we have given them a full refund.
I think that that's a very creative way to start building some interest in the new facility, even though it's not completed. And is all the software and everything already up, and where are we on that process of the physical booking of that stuff?
The booking software that we're going to be using, I've worked with the Lundin Group, and they like the software that we currently use for booking our park shelters and booking events at the miners. So we've already gone into that software and built the mech in it, and so it is ready to go.
Perfect. I appreciate the effort and the creative thinking. Our first year is going to be key if to get it right. If we get it right with the first 365 days, then our reputation will hopefully fill the mech up for years out. You know, I know the library is already excited about Recon 2020. And I think that's, you know, one of the public things that we'll be doing there that's going to also help. So I'm very supportive of this particular promotion.
Thank you, Counselor Johnson. So what made you arrive at 21% as opposed to 20% or 10% or 50%?
2021, it was a catchy slogan, 21 and 21.
Thank you very
21
much.
off and 21.
And these are only for bookings that are going to occur between September and December of 2021.
Could be somebody that books it for 22 also,
Very good.
because
Thank
we
you.
will book a year out.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Counselor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Brian, I think this is a great idea, so thanks for bringing it forward. I think it's really catchy. I was just going to ask, when you put all this together, will you have some kind of a, I don't know, where people could pass it on Facebook? Like you put together, the Lundin Group might maybe give us some.
Absolutely. We'll promote it on all of our social media sites. We have, the MEC itself has Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter.
Excellent.
And its own webpage. So we'll promote it on that. Then we will also share it on the Parks and Rec page. The city will share it, and other city pages, I'm sure, would also be willing to share it. So we can get the word out there that we do have the sale going on.
So I would make a motion then to approve 21 and 21.
Support.
A motion by Counselor Paulson and supported by Counselor Johnson to approve the 2021 promotional project for the MEC. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Johnson?
And this will be retroactive to these folks who have already,
Yes.
thank you.
And can we begin this promotion at this point rather than waiting till the council meeting?
Yeah, I think we can do that. Brian? No problem. Okay, so the part of the motion is going to, the addendum to the motion would be this retroactive, those who've already booked, and that we allow that the promotion to begin immediately prior to the council meeting that was scheduled for, what is it, the 9th? Okay, thank you. Okay, is that so, that's okay with the motion?
I will
Counselor
amend the
Paulson?
motion to reflect
And
that.
Counselor Johnson? Okay, did you get that, Pam? The whole motion, thank you. Moved and supported, is there any further discussion? Hearing, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries, thank you.
All right, the next item on the agenda is consideration and approval of the de-escalating rental adjustment for the Miners Memorial Building users in the MEC. Those individuals who currently use the Miners Building realize that when they go to move their events at the MEC, they're moving into a brand-new state-of-the-art facility, and they realize that the rental rates will be going up. It has been the desire of both the Park and Rec Commission and I believe this council to show some loyalty to those who have been utilizing the miners over the past several years in the state that it is in as we move into the MEC. We also do not want to financially burden these organizations with a huge increase. So the Park and Recreation Commission has been tossing around a bunch of different ideas as far as what would be in the best interest of not only the MEC financially and operationally, but also those who utilize the miners and not imposing such a huge cost burden to them right away. So they have come up with the de-escalating rental adjustments for them. Now, in the memo that I had given you, I've given you a list of the groups and organizations that have been utilizing the miners, what part of the building they utilize, and how much they pay right now for the use of those buildings. We've then gone in the second table that you see is we have put together, if somebody uses the South Room, what is the equivalent of the South Room in the MEC? Well, the equivalent in the South Room in the MEC would be 2 sections of our main ballroom. The equivalent of the North Room in the MEC would be 3 sections of our ballroom. So we have figured out what the MEC value, or if John were to call us today and say, I want to book an event in the MEC, how much, and I want 3 sections of the main ballroom, what are they going to be charged? And based on the fees that were approved by this council, they would be charged $900 for that space. Well, that's going from $200 to $900 is a large jump. So the de-escalating price would be doing a 50% increase based off of the miners' rental cost for 2021 and 2022. Then in 23, a 40% increase from the 2022 rate. In 24, a 30% increase. So the increase decreases over time, but it gets us closer and closer to the rate. Now you will see there are several rooms that get right to the MEC rental rate right away. Prime example of that is the arena. In the miners, the arena rents for $500 a day. In the MEC, it's going to rent for $750. So if you are just renting the arena, say for a concert, you're going to get bumped up to the arena rental, the MEC arena rental right away. We're not going to prorate that any farther out. I hope I have made this as clear as mud and not murkied it up too much here. The benefit in doing this is it allows the MEC and the city to recapture some of the revenue that we need, but also shows loyalty to those who have been using the miners in the past. Now, these prices would not be good for somebody who wants to start an event. Say I want to start a computer tech trade show, and it's going to be utilizing the MEC. They would not get these prices. They would pay the prices that you had approved. This prorated de-escalating program is just for the organizations that are listed in the table above that have been utilizing the miners consistently for the past several years.
Okay, Brian, I have two questions.
Yes.
First, the perception and the optics of this, based upon new people coming in, knowing that this is, it has a little thread of parochialism as well involved in this. So those are three issues that I have moving forward. And I understand having the loyalty, and I understand, using something to incrementally adjust for those who have held events over the years. But the same thing holds true for new people coming in with the new events. They're willing to pay the entire amount. They might have an event that brings 2,000 people in, where you have an event that brings 200 people in. They're paying the full rate. The people that's been here coming in on a daily basis, on a regular basis over the years, pay a reduced rate. I'm not opposed to making some kind of adjustment incrementally for a year, but when you go out 2 or 3 years, or even up to 2024, I'm a little uncomfortable with that right now, but I'll keep an open mind as we move around the table here. Councilor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. Brian, under the groups that currently utilize the chart that you have there, under the Home and Boat Show, Trade Show,
Yes.
they're using all, and that's 3,600. But if you go down to the bottom, the new MEC value is 3,550. So was that,
Let me explain that. The Home and Boat Show pays $3,600 to us for the Home and Boat Show, for the week that they are in the miners. So if you break that down to the day rental of what they are paying the $1,175.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. Councilor Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. One of your assumptions was that they're going to be using similar space.
Yes.
But in reality, too, let's just say the chili cook-off would not necessarily be using the arena anymore. They could be using the ballroom as an entirety. That those kinds of things could happen. How do you anticipate balancing that, or is this just based on what they would have used before?
This is based on what they would have used before.
I think it does show, you've got a defined list here. And I guess if this is all public record, if people want to come in and look and see if they're on the list and if they think they should be, I think a letter to you explaining why would be an appropriate way to be included.
Yes.
But knowing you, obviously you put a lot of time and effort into this and did significant research. I think that the list is legitimate because you've included everybody. You've included the city band, which gets to use the South Room for free. There's no escalator on free. They're, as we're moving forward, I hope that we continue to recognize there are organizations either within the city government or like the gun safety classes, that those are things that I hope that we build into our policies, that we provide for on a regular basis over the next 50 years. So I'm supportive of this, Brian. I think you did a good job. I do think it's fair, new people coming in, if they haven't used our facility before, they haven't used our facility before. Now there's a lot more options to have meetings in a small boardroom as opposed to a ginormous, we're going from 3 options or 4 options to literally hundreds of options in the building. So I like what you've presented here, and I'll be supporting it. as it's presented. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Johnson. Counselor Freely.
You know, part of the reason we pulled the trigger on this project was because of the projections that were provided to us by Isaac Sports Groups and so on and so forth. And, you know, I'm really bad at math, so I'm just hoping that you've done some math with regard to those estimated projections and how this may impact that over the first 4 or 5 years of the operations, for one thing. And then, to be totally upfront and honest, was spoken to by a community member the other day who said, "My gosh, Gary, do you know how much they're charging at that new building for if we wanted to have our wedding reception there? And do you know how much you're paying that group from Duluth to be the people that we have to talk to book these," and so on and so forth. So there is this perception out there like, holy cow, how are we going to even be able to afford what we wanted to do in this brand new building already? There's some concerns about that. Talking to other people though, and other prices for other venues, they said they're getting off well at the new Mech compared to if you went here, or here. So
Correct.
hearing that kind of settled me into like, okay, you got to take it all into perspective, what kind of venues are available as compared to what they're looking at already. So that brought me down to a little reality check. So in terms of reality check, I think this is, it's a good idea. I do agree with the mayor that there is some parochialism there, but I think to some degree that can be afforded to people that are part and parcel to our local clientele, so to speak, that have been consistently using it for years and years, and to, you know, kind of break them into the utilization in a new building in a way that's reasonable. So I would not have any opposition to it, but I do hope that some math has been done with regard to what the projections were as opposed to what the reality will be, if in fact there are people that are going to balk at even looking at using that facility based on what they initially see the cost of it being, so to speak. So, I mean, those are some of my concerns. And the other one was with the whole 1% sales tax. You know, there was an estimated revenue for that as well. And I know like the big box stores are doing well, but the major, you know, businesses, small businesses in town are not doing well. How is that affecting the projected revenue for the project as well? My understanding is it's not been particularly negative at this point in time, which is good to hear. So overall, I think this is, you're doing some creative thinking, and I like that, Brian, both in the 21 promotion as well as this. I think these are good ideas, and I wouldn't have any opposition to moving forward with this.
And to answer your question, yes, we did do the math of how this does work into the projections for the building. It does, we do take a hit in doing this, but my personal belief is taking care of those who have shown loyalty and continue to utilize us is worth us taking this little bit of a hit over a couple of years. Also gets them to continue to feel comfortable in utilizing the new facility. They know they're going to have a rent increase. This is obviously a rent increase that they will have, and we will work with them on different things of, if this says they'll get 3 sections of the ballroom, well, what if they want to expand their show to have 4 sections of the ballroom? We'll definitely work with everybody on a case-by-case basis and do something that is fair. And that's what really this is being, is trying to be fair to the community members that have been here. What I did in this list is went back over rentals for the past 5 years. If there was somebody who rented 5 years ago and then we haven't seen them in 5 years, they didn't make this list. I don't want to put somebody on this list that had an event in the minors back in 1975 and now thinks that they should get a prorated rate because, well, I did something in there 35, 40 years ago. In my mind, it doesn't work that way. We're showing loyalty to those who have been loyal to us while we've been in the not so aesthetically appealing minors and moving over to the state-of-the-art mech. And I forgot the other portion of your question that I was going to answer, but we did take into consideration the cost and everything. as far as the rental rates that you approved, Tyler did a phenomenal job of doing a study of comparable facilities to us, and had presented that to the city council when we brought forth the Park and Recreation Commission's recommendation for rental rates. We are not a little tiny one-hall community center in this. What we did was we made sure that we were careful in positioning ourselves price-wise to other comparable facilities, not only right in our immediate area, but within the region. In the immediate area, we actually believe that our pricing structure gives us a better bang for the buck than if you were to go to one of our direct competitions.
Okay, thank you, Brian. We'll just go around the room this direction. We'll go Councilor Paulson, Councilor Bearable, and then to Councilor Beyondich. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, this didn't include any activity in the Klein Cupoletti building.
No, this is just minors building.
So I just wanted to make that clarification for the general public.
Correct.
And then this is more of a technical question regarding the software that you guys are currently using. When a user goes in to book their event, are they booking that online by themselves, clicking boxes, and then checking out of a shopping cart?
We do have the capability to do that. For the MEC, we will not have reservations for the MEC online. You'll actually have to talk to a physical human person. Later on in here, we actually do have a contract that you have to sign and the rules that you will have to follow in using it. So we want to have more of that old-fashioned personal feel to it, so we will not be doing just online booking for the MEC.
And then will there be, and I like that, I like having that touch point, but will there be able to have an accounting within that software that you currently have for like internal purposes?
Oh, yes.
Okay,
Oh, yeah. When Tyler is booking an event, he will go through those check boxes and mark it on there, so that their receipt then has the itemized list of what all they are getting. Then it is in our computer software of what they are getting. So week before the booking, we are able to look ahead of, okay, what is coming to the ballroom this next week and what do we need to have set up? And okay, so on Tuesday, we have to have the dance floor and stage set up. On Wednesday, we have to tear that down and set up auditorium style. On Friday, we have to set up for a dinner for 500. On Saturday, we have to set up for a dinner for 250, and so on and so forth. So the computer software will give our staff the information and be able to prepare for what's coming.
perfect. And then that's also with all the conference rooms, or the two conference
Oh,
rooms
yes.
in the boardroom?
And arenas.
Okay, so it's,
And the pre-function space that are not rooms, but we have those built into the system also.
okay. And then when you do, say you do this type of a promotional 21 and 21, is there a place that you actually apply a discount in that software, or do you just, I guess I'd like to, sorry I'm being technical, but I'd like to see how the software works, so I would understand a little bit better.
Yeah, this software does not allow us to do the promotion, so what we would have to go in there and do is actually sit down with, or for me, I'd sit down with the calculator and, okay, your discount is this, and then lower each one of those costs by that amount.
Is there a way in that software to apply a discount code, like you do when you're checking out in a shopping cart online?
There may be, but off the top of my head, I don't know how to do it right away, but more than likely, there is a way that we could build this in there, so that can be
I'm
one of my
working on that
homework
currently.
assignments to start working on.
Yeah, and I just think that would be a nice feature to have in place, so that you wouldn't have to do all the manual steps, if at all possible.
Correct.
To include that in that technology. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. Councilor Bearable?
Thank you. Brian, I'm pleased with your schedules and stuff on prices. I was just out this weekend in Fargo, North Dakota, and my grandson and his fiancee had to book stuff a year and a half in advance out there. And once this gets going with Mac, you're going to see that this rate that you have there is way under what they charge out there for a venue of about the same size.
Yes, it is,
I
and-
can tell you what it is out there if you want to.
Oh, Tyler can tell you what it is out there because his study went as far as Fargo.
Yeah, so these are reasonable prices here in comparison to other places. So I'm pleased with what you've done. So thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Bearable. Counselor Beyondich. She had answered the question for you already? Good. Again, for me, it's about the same thing. It's about optics, about perception, and about parochialism. I'm not saying that we can't overcome that, but we have to be prepared that we're going to get some comments and some questions and some concerns from the general public, particularly those users that may have not been a regular user who says, well, why can't you apply the discount to me because I live in the city of Virginia, or I run a business in the city of Virginia, or I'm within the region. Why don't I? How did you arrive at that cutoff point? All those questions are going to have to be answered, and we're going to have to be prepared to answer those questions. I'm not opposed to making some kind of an adjustment for year number one, moving forward, to help them get an adjustment to a discount so that they can prepare their cost to their vendors, for the example, the Home Boat and Travel Show, that they can pass that on the following year. But to spread it over a 3-year period, I think that's a little extensive myself. But, I understand the reasoning behind it. I know that it took a lot of work for you to prepare this and to come forward with this, and it's rather comprehensive, which I think is good. And so, I would like to see that that broken down in a shorter period of time as opposed to spreading out over for 3 years to 2024 for those users. But, the general consensus is, and we have to arrive at a consensus, and it's important for us to move forward. So I'll be voting with the majority with respect to this as well. So, but those are just some of the concerns I have, some of the questions I have, and moving forward. So I think it's a solid plan. It comes to recommendations from the Park and Rec Department, from our city staff, from our vendors, from our department heads. So I guess I'm comfortable, again, moving forward, but just being prepared to answer those questions as we move forward. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I will move to approve the de-escalating rental adjustment as presented by Brian.
A motion by Councilor Johnson to move forward with a recommendation by Brian Silber and staff to the consideration and approval of the de-escalating rental agreement for the Miners Memorial Building users in the MEC as presented. Is there support? Support by Councilor Barnzelli. Further discussion? Anyone? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Now moving on.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Brian?
Now moving on, our next thing is consideration and approval of marketing packages for the MEC. I'm going to actually turn this portion over to Tyler and Tracy Lundeen, who have helped us put this together.
Yeah, these aren't discounted packages, are they?
No.
Okay, thank you.
No. Thank you for having us. We appreciate it. Counselor Freelieb, I like how you brought up the whole pricing and everything. I think that's an important conversation. It's good when we get feedback like that, because when we get feedback, we can take it, learn from it, and change things. In regards to the pricing, like Brian said, when we did that study, the MEC is a little different in regards to food. We don't have in-house catering, so all of our food's going to be coming from outside vendors. So in regards to the whole pricing with that, I think the pricing is a lot cheaper from what it probably should be. If we were to have an in-house caterer, you'd probably see those prices, like Mr. Baraboo was saying, probably upwards of $5-6 grand for the actual rental and food and beverage minimum for just the MEC itself. So we made sure to put all that in consideration, but I appreciate getting that feedback, because that's how we're gonna grow, is getting that feedback, and we'll keep track of all that to make sure that there's no,
Mayor, can I ask one question?
Yes, Councilor
While I'm
Freely.
thinking about it. Given that,
Yeah.
that was one of the other questions was, will they have to go with like Valentini's of Duluth or Blackwoods or whatever of Duluth, as opposed to like Zoop's in Tower or Paul's Market in Evlith. That's one of their concerns too. Will they be able to cater from local
They
vendors?
can cater from whoever they'd like, as long as they have all the state and the local City of Virginia guidelines. That's the best way that we should do it. Limiting people's choices on food, especially when you go to a wedding, probably one of the most things they're gonna remember, if the food was good or if it was bad. Like, that's one thing. Like, my sister's wedding, food was terrible. I remember that. So, yeah, and I was a little smaller then. So that's definitely something, and we will be having at all events as well. We're gonna have comment cards, everything like that, especially with this first year too. It's gonna be very important that we're taking every single piece of feedback, good or bad, sort it, and be like, all right, this is what's working, this has to change, and that goes from pricing, that goes from the materials we're using, that goes from caterers, everything we have across the board. We need to make sure that we're keeping track of that, because if we aren't, then it's gonna be bad. And like Counselor Johnson said, this first year is gonna really make or break, how the MEC is perceived by the general public and the community as a whole. And it's important that we do it right, and that's our job, is to make sure that we're helping doing that, and we're gonna do that, and that's part of why feedback is gonna be really important. And feel free, if there are any general information with bad feedback or anything, feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to speak with them and get more information on that. To move into the packages here, it seems like a lot, but all the prices were already approved, and we did not change any of the pricing. We just bulked everything together to make it look a little pretty. So the first 3 pages on every single one of these packages are the same, except for the breakout packages. And the only reason why we have the breakout packages is because if we would have put it with the meeting packages document and the trade show document, would have been really bulky, and we wanted to make it really easy on the readers. So on the first package, we have the wedding package. And as you see, we got the venue rental information. It breaks down the square footage of the ballroom, the max seating capacity, the ballroom price, and then we also did it as well, so you can do the individual sections, which would be 1 through 4. They're each 1,500 square feet, and then they have a capacity level of 125. And you can do one ballroom section and meeting room for $600. We're gonna sell this. The goal is to sell the ballroom and the meeting rooms together. And meeting rooms can be used as dressing rooms. It can be used as just bride and groom, everyone putting their stuff in there, their valuables, and you lock it. It's just another way we can sell things, because we're having a wedding. The likelihood of us selling one of those other rooms to someone that's not part of the wedding, it's not gonna happen. So that's really important that we kind of section those. So if someone wanted to just do a part of the section, they could do it and have a meeting room, or they can do the full ballroom and meeting room as well. Page 5, which is the next page, it goes to the rent again. And then part of the MEC not having food, having it be an off-site caterer, we had to make sure that we had kind of a breakdown where we included the table linen, skirting, silverware, and plates. So we did this breakdown. This was recommended from the Parks and Recreations Board. I had a different guest break, but they suggested something else, and it made more sense, so we went with that. So 0 to 125, it would be $395. 125 to 250 guests, it would be $750. 250 to 375 guests, it would be $1,110. And 375 to 500 guests, it would be $1,465. And then we have our wedding add-ons, which is a dance package that would include the dance floor and the stage. That would be $400. And we have our state-of-the-art audio-visual package, and that includes wireless mic, user projectors, and drop-down projector screens. Big slideshows are getting really big at weddings now, especially during dinner, so that's definitely something we want to have on there. And the confetti usage fee, we had some fun talking about this, because some people like confetti, but staff don't, because it's fun to clean up, so we had to price accordingly for that, but we wanted to have that option there as well, to have that on there. Okay, so that covers the wedding packages. Are any questions on that? Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Lane. I do have one question.
Yeah.
And, it's not it's a tangent-related question. And so the wedding package comes together, the caterer is, meets the guidelines, wherever they come from, wherever it is, they meet the requirements, they use the kitchen. My question is, who carries the insurance liability? So if an individual books the wedding, they also book the caterer, right? So who's responsible? Is it the person who books the wedding, or if it's the caterer, or they're two separate agreements moving forward, or is it a package as you move forward as far as that goes? How does that work?
Yeah, the caterer itself would have the license for the food.
Right, but as far as a deposit or damage or whatever, the insurance aspect, who carries that? The caterer carries that, or does the person who rents the venue cater it?
Person who
Or
rents
carry
the
the
venue.
insurance?
The
I'm
person who
sorry?
rents the venue is the one that's renting from the city, that's entering into the agreement with the city to use the building.
So they're entering the agreement with the caterer,
Yep.
so the caterer isn't renting the facility
nope,
separately?
nope.
Thank you for that clarification. Thank you. Please move on.
Yeah, so the caterer would, everything, so I would do the selling with we would do the selling with the venue and then the food, and then, obviously the on-site liquor venue, whoever may that be, would do that. But then the actual person renting the space from us would go to the caterer and handle all that. The next packages are shows and expos package. So like I said, the first 3 pages are very similar. It's the title page, it's the welcome page, and then the at a glance, which kind of gives a general overview of the package itself and what it has to offer. Shows and expos, we got the capacity levels and it breaks it down. On page 4, we got the lobby and entry, which is 3,000 square feet. This is just, you've already seen this part before, it's just a 650. We just broke it down we just broke it down with people for reception. It would be 300, and then we actually did the booth space as well for the exhibit hall. So that's broken down that way. Page 5, which the next page here, we got the full ballroom, and we did this same kind of breakdown here, 6,500 square feet. We can fit 40 booths space in there for the rental fees the same, and then it breaks it down from sections 1 to 4. You can do 10 booths in each section for that 350. Page 6, we got the packages for the trade show. This will look familiar to you as well. It's the booth package, and then we also put a booth add-ons available via a la carte, just because if someone needs something extra, or if they're like, all right, we don't want a booth package because we don't need one, we just want to do something else, that's cool, pick and choose, that's perfectly fine with us. And then that just breaks it down from 6-foot table skirting, pipe and drape, and the waste baskets, if they may need one of those. And then arena electricity, we got those 2 panels that we got, and that's $500 per panel there. And then the Wi-Fi, this is high-speed internet access, so it's not the public one that's going to be available to everyone. This would be really good for trade shows and like credit card processors, stuff like that, with the plug-in and everything. That's $100 there. Yes, sir.
Quick question, Mr. Lenny, I apologize for interrupting, but when I read through the packages, that was one of the issues. Why, they're renting, we're piecemealing rentals, obviously, based on what your needs are, but what's the additional cost associated with charging $100 for Wi-Fi? If they're spending $2,500 in other areas, why would they have to pay another $100 for Wi-Fi?
It's just an added extra, the actual Wi-Fi. So if they just want to come in and use our basic Wi-Fi, they're more than happy to use that. There's some particulars.
Very good, thank you.
You're welcome. And then the last page of this page, page 7 of the Expo page, is just the equipment page. All that pricing on there is just everything that you approved before. There's no bulk pricing or anything on that. That's just in case they want to take some other stuff off of there. Any other questions on that?
Yes, I think there are.
Yeah.
Counselor Paulson.
Why, yes. So going back to the arena electricity.
Yeah.
How is that, okay, so explain a little bit about what that is, and then how did you guys arrive at that price?
Yeah, these are Brian's babies, so we'll give that to him.
So they're paying part of our electric bill? Is that how that works?
Yes, essentially. And this is a standard thing in trade shows as for the add-on for adding electricity. Actually, a lot of facilities will charge a fee per booth that wants electricity. But what we have in the MEC is unlike what any other facility has in the MEC. It is either going to be a huge success or it is going to be a dismal failure. I'm going for the huge success. Right now,
Failure is not an option.
failure is not an option. Myself being a touch on the OCD side, When I walk into the miners during the home and boat show, and we are getting power to our vendors, how do we do that? We have all of these extension cords dropping down from the ceiling, so it looks like we have spaghetti falling from the ceiling. Well, that irks me a little bit, and I don't want to see that in a state-of-the-art facility. We do not have the ability to add electrical plug-ins in the floor. It's an ice arena. Water and electricity are not the best of friends, and ice is a little bit of water, so we couldn't put plug-ins in the floor. We can't put plug-ins right behind the boards, so we had to come up with something else. So we have come up with these portable power units. Now, right now in the miners, what we do is when a concert comes in, they hire an electrician to go into our breaker box and wire in the correct plugs and everything that they need to plug into to do their show. What we are going to do is we will actually have 2 panels on wheels, basically a breaker box that has a whole bunch of outlets, both 110 outlets and various different plugins for 220 and other amperages. That plugs into a spot on either end of the arena, basically behind where the hockey nets are. There is a plug in the wall that this box just plugs into that then has a 50-foot cord, which can get you to the center of ice. We'll have 2 of these boxes and have the ability to make more of them, and both sheets of ice will have these plug-ins so that we can take these power packs and move them to where we want to, and then you can have the cords running behind the booze in the middle of the arena, so you can get power to the booze in the center of the arena. In coming up with this power thing, there's a cost to it. It's built into our construction costs, but we want to recoup some of those costs. But we don't want to nickel and dime people to the point that we're charging a vendor $20 just to have power for the day. That doesn't mean that the event promoter might not nickel and dime their trade show booth people by passing along that fee to them and making additional money. But we don't want to be known in the industry as nickel and diming people, which is why you see all of these prices priced below our competitors. I do know that for the booth package, one of the other arenas here in the area that offers the same type thing charges around $60 for a booth package, where we're charging $30 for it.
So just for clarification, this is if somebody, like the home and boat show, is actually booking the arena. And it's
Yes.
not per booth that you're.
Correct.
talking
We're
about
not
here.
charging per booth. We're charging the event promoter
Got it.
this fee.
Okay, and then it would be up to the event promoter then to,
Now, they may charge each one of their booths an additional $10 for power, and if they did that, they'd cover that in a hurry and end up making money, but that would be up to the event promoter
Got
to
it.
determine how they recoup that power.
and I appreciate that clarification, because I was kind of thinking like, a food vendor, like Schweibe's or whoever comes in, they're gonna need electricity where other vendors might not, so I
Correct.
just wanted to make sure that it wasn't just targeted, but if it's the whole show, now it makes sense, so I appreciate that clarification.
Yeah, and the last thing we want to do is develop the reputation of nickel and diming people, which is why our prices are set the way that they are. Now, if you look at our initial spreadsheet for things that you had approved, you will see that in some of these packages, there are a little bit of a price break. Prime example of that is the cost to rent the dance floor and the stage, but if you do our dance package, which is the dance floor and the stage, you get a few dollar discount. So we're trying to do some of these things to provide some of those built-in discounts for people.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Does that answer all your questions, Councilor Paulson? Very good. So I see no other lights on, so are you looking for approval for this marketing package?
Yeah, we got a couple more. We
Let's
got
go.
One more. All right, perfect. Sounds good. The next package here is the meeting packages. Page 4, you will see it's just got the general pricing still, all of that. If you go to page 5, it's the same kind of pricing deal there. Page 6, it is the same. And then page 7, speeding up here a little bit because some of it's repetitive. Page 7, you got the Ballroom Premium Medium Package. That includes the AV system, podium with microphone, flip chart, power strip, and an easel. For the full ballroom's $450, and for each ballroom section, it's $150, but it includes the use of the AV system with the room that they're using. And then we got the meeting/classroom premium AV package. That includes the AV system, podium, and microphone, and that's $100. And then, of course, we got the meeting add-ons and a la carte, which kind of breaks it down, if they want to just pick whatever they want off of that instead of doing the actual meeting package. And then page 8, the breakdown, 0 to 125, that's the same as the wedding package. We want to be consistent across the board with that. So weddings weren't getting, a better deal than actual meetings were. We just want to be consistent because we didn't want to think like, oh, you're charging meetings more than weddings. So stayed consistent with that. And then breakout packages, which is the last package. That's page 5. That's the same, the ballroom premium meeting package. This page here goes tied in more with the trade shows than the actual meeting packages. And this is all the packages here are the same as you just saw on the last page. Our goal with this, the goal with the building, we've had several conversations with them, make sure it could be self-sustaining, but also make sure, like Brian was saying, nickel and diming, that's not gonna do us any good. It's not gonna do the outlook that people have on us good. And we just wanna make sure we do it right. And I don't like losing money, so as long as I have an input on some of this stuff, I'll make sure that I'm just saying things that I think is going to make us money, but it's going to be fair. So we'd like council approval on this. If we could.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lundin. Councilor Johnson?
Mayor, how will add-ons during an event be handled? As in, oh shoot, we forgot to order the microphones.
There will be staff on site at the MEC. I think within reason, if someone's saying, like if someone forgets like a giant stage for a concert or something, I'm sure that's going to be a little different conversation. But if it's as simple as a chair, a table, we definitely will do that, and we will charge accordingly, of course. But we're not going to turn anyone away. If there's one room that wasn't completely set up or they need 50 more tables, we'll make sure we can accommodate best of our abilities with that.
And that's a perfect segue into my next question. When we're having a major event, we are going to need tech staff, and I'm just saying this for radar purposes, that are dedicated to running from room to room between sessions to make sure the microphones are talking to the computers and the computers are talking to that. So that's just one of those things as we're looking forward. That's different than the current staff we have that go and move chairs around. I mean, there's some different skill sets there, so.
On our radar.
Just wanna, what's that?
On our radar.
Yep. And then, let's see. And then, in the contract, does it list the type of support the city will provide during the events? Or is that a independent, okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Thank you.
And just one more thing to add, we're having our first trade show booth at the Duluth Wedding Show on the 14th in Duluth, and we would like permission as well to get approval to print right away to make sure we have the materials for the wedding packages for the Duluth Wedding Show on the 14th, just so the printer has enough time to print those.
The 14th of March?
Yes, sir.
Will that include the 21 and 21 promotion?
Yes, it will.
Okay. I will move the proposal. I want to get the wording right.
Now, we would like to have the ability to change the graphics in these packages once we actually get pictures. Like I said, I love DSGW's artist renditions, but once the building is done, I foresee us still using these packages and would like to include actual photos of the facility because I think that will sell a lot better than the artist renditions. but we will keep the same formatting and same information in the packages.
Sure, sure, thank you.
Well, is this the, we're.
Marketing
We're approving.
packages, is that correct? Asking for the move of the marketing packages, Counselor Johnson?
So we're approving the 4 packages and granting permission for immediate distribution, and that covers printing and any other.
Of the
technical
wedding
editing.
package.
Yeah, just
Just the
printing for the
wedding?
wedding package. Yep.
Yeah, so I'll move that accordingly so that we can be a presence at the next trade show.
Okay, moved by Counselor Johnson, is there support?
I'll support.
Support by Counselor Paulson. Did you get that full? Thank you. Further discussion, one quick question. So as you market these things moving forward, and you put the packages together, you're going to have the thing on the March 14th, or whatever the case may be. When you have the staff, as Councilor Johnson said, running back and forth, and I know we're going to have professional staff, I know everybody's going to be on it, but the question that I want to make sure is that attending some of these shows, staffing a booth for the company that I work for out in a couple of different places. One was a phenomenal venue, the other was a really nice venue, but the staff was not on top of it. And so this is important. I know we're going to be on top of it, to be able to run back and forth. So if somebody needs something right away, it's not going to take a half hour to get there to get that thing accomplished. Somebody's going to respond immediately, and I'm sure that's all part of the administrative part of that. So thank you. So it's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Is this also including the Miners Event and Convention Center Rules and Regulation document?
No, that's
a
next.
separate, okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moved and supported on item number 4 on the agenda, which is consideration and approval of the marketing packages for the MEC. It's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Thank you.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. After this item, maybe take a quick break. It's been a long process so far, so.
Mayor, may I clarify, the next item, while it's listed as approving the rental application, we're actually approving the rules and regulations, not the application itself.
Okay, so we're gonna make sure we make adjustment to the agenda on item number 5, consideration and approval of the
Rules and
rules and
regulations.
regulations.
Rules and regulations.
As opposed to the rental agreement. So the rules and regulations under item 5. Brian?
Yes. So the next page in the documents that I have given you are the rules and regulations that we have come up with. That is this one that has 37 different rules and things that you have to follow in utilizing the facility.
Might as well hire an attorney when you rent the thing.
You already did. Thank you, Mr. Lindsay.
Thank you, Brian. A little shout out there. Okay.
So, and what we've done is we have something similar like this that we already utilize for renting our park buildings, renting the existing miners, and we just wanted to make sure that we adjust this and tailor it for the miners. We have made several changes. One of the things that we've changed is we will not accept rentals more than 2 years out. So that means that Councilor Beyondich can't come to me and say, I want to book the facility for June 25th of 2025, and we hold it. We do have a 2-year window that we will be booking in. So the question that I know I'm going to get is, well, what about these events that require more than 2 years, like the trade shows and the concerts and everything? Most of those trade shows and everything will not be contacting us directly to do a rental agreement. We would be submitting an RFP to them to get them to come to us. So that's also one of the reason for that 2-year window is we don't want a bunch of people filling up our rentals so that we can't bring in these big trade shows and conventions to the facility. Other things that we have that are different from what we normally do is the security deposit. Right now, for when you rent the Miners building, you have to give us a $100 damage deposit that is returned to you at the end of the event. What we are doing here is going more with the industry standard of requiring the non-refundable 25% security deposit. So that's 25% of whatever your booking is. So if Charlie's grandson's wedding is going to be at the MEC, and their bill at the end of the day is going to be $2,000, then 25% of that $2,000 is due at the time that they are going to be signing the contract. That's non-refundable. That way, if a week before the event occurs, they go, well, we broke up, we're no longer getting married, I don't need this, and they had booked a June 21st wedding date, well, that's going to be a very popular day to get married, and if we only have 1 week to fill that, more than likely the room's going to be empty. Whereas if we had held it for them for 2 years, we need to get something for holding that room for them. If we cancel on them, then there is the refund. Now, if the renter had paid their rental in full, had given us 100% or even 50%, and they cancel within the time period that's outlined here to cancel in, they would get up to 25% of their refund.
Question.
Yes.
Go ahead, Mayor.
No, go ahead, Councilor Bearable.
So if I'm understanding you, Brian, no matter what, if they have a $2,000 bill there for their rental, they're not going to get $500 back anyway at all. Am I reading that wrong? That's a bunch of crap. They need to get that. If they have the venue, they need to get that money back.
That's part of their rental rate that they would have. We're not, like right now, we ask for a damage deposit, a $100 damage deposit that goes back to them. We're not asking for that anymore. What we're asking for them to do is, at the time that they book, pay 25% of their rental rate.
Oh, so that's not refundable, is what you're
Correct.
saying. Okay, that makes more sense.
Yes.
I thought you were charging an additional
No.
25%, the way it sounded like.
No, we're not charging an additional 25%.
Then I'm okay with it.
Yeah. If your rental is going to be $1,000 for the day for the building, at the time that you book, you have to write us a check for $250.
That's fine, I understand that. The way I took you at first, that it was an additional amount of money.
Now, we are requiring for damages a credit card to be on file so that if somebody comes in and ends up having a shotgun wedding and the shotgun goes off and we have bullet holes that we have to repair, sorry, then we have a way to recoup the cost of fixing the building. Or I guess a nicer way of doing it would be somebody had tape on the wall and peeled paint off and we have to do those repairs. We will have a way to recoup damages.
Okay, question.
Yes.
And this is a legal question as well. So how does it work when something happens and we have to cancel the event? And say it's 3 months prior or whatever it is, case may be, and they've put a deposit onto the 25%, which will be reimbursed to them. But what legal recourse do they do for recuperating us canceling? I don't anticipate that's going to happen unless it's an emergency circumstance, but in the event that does occur.
You have seen that occur this entire past year for every venue like us, that they have had to cancel or reschedule events. The first thing that we do is we go to the person whose event is being impacted and we see if we cannot reschedule their date for another time. If it's because we have had something that has occurred and we're needing to cancel, more than likely, we're going to be trying to cut them a deal to save face.
Thank you. That was what I was getting at, so thank you very much, Brian.
If we're not able to reschedule them, then they get 100% refund.
Of course.
So we don't keep that 25% discount because we're at fault. That's the moral, ethical, and legal thing to do.
Okay, so you'll make those adjustments moving forward. Okay, thank you. Counselor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple questions on items 7, 14, 20, and 24, and I'll go really quick.
Yes.
Under the number 7, under kitchen and food, at the bottom it says no outside non-alcoholic beverages or alcoholic beverages may be sold at the MEC. Non-alcoholic beverages and alcoholic beverages will be, if requested, sold by the MEC and the licensed liquor provider of the MEC. That sounds confusing to me.
Okay. You are having an event at the MEC. You have hired caterer A to be the caterer. You want to have a champagne toast at the event. This caterer cannot do the champagne toast. We put out an RFP for our alcohol provider, which was due this past Friday, and our committee will be reviewing those proposals tomorrow to move forward with that alcohol provider. That alcohol provider is the only person who has the right to serve alcohol in the building. Reason that we are doing that is because they will have the permits, they will have the insurance, they will have the liability of serving the alcohol.
Right, and I do
For the other-
understand that.
yeah.
My question, though, is the portion where it says it may be sold. So like, say somebody is having a wedding and they're doing a cash bar. Does that language need to change in there? Because they're actually then selling
They have to do the
alcohol.
cash bar through our liquor vendor. They can't bring their own liquor in.
Right,
So then it's sold by our vendor is what it's saying. You have to use our vendor for liquor.
so that language is just fine in there. That was
Yes.
my only question, was the
And
actual wording.
The non-alcoholic beverages are, because we are working on pouring rights and an agreement with, for pouring rights in the building. So if we go with soda company A, you can't bring in soda company B's product into the building because we're contractually obligated to use soda company A's products.
Are you done, Counselor Paulson?
I think, I'm not, but I think Counselor Johnson
Well,
wanted to make a
I've had
point.
my light on since number 1. so
Counselor Johnson, go ahead.
I'm going to go back to number 1 for clarification, Brian, if I
Yes.
can. So if we know that there's a large show that wants to come here in 3 years as a city, and we're going to RFP for them, the city can block out those dates for our purposes.
Absolutely. The city has first right to book things in the building.
As far out as we want, because it's our building.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for that
So
clarification.
if I become a good fortune teller and I can identify a musician that is going to be huge in 2030 and I can go ahead and book them today, we'll do that.
Like Preston Gunderson, maybe. Oh, sorry. But, or if somebody's willing to commit to a 10-year annual something, is that something we could, as a city, agree to?
For example, if the Minnesota Library Association is booking things 5 years out, and we submit to do something 5 years from now, we have the ability, not only in our software, but in these rules and regulations and in our policies, to reserve that week block of time for something.
Okay, appreciate that clarification.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, go back to
I'll
what you
go
were
as
talking
quickly as I
about.
can. Number 14, the designated area. Only the area designated in the MEC rental application may be used. Offices or other private areas are off limits. So when you're doing an actual wedding and you're doing any of the ballrooms, but you want to have pictures done in the pre-function space where the fireplace is that included, or will they have to have a separate charge for that?
That would be included. This would basically cover something, you're doing your wedding, does not give you access or right to put on your ice skates and go skate on the second arena's sheet of ice during your wedding reception. You have reserved something in the event center. So that's where what you are limited to utilizing.
So that hallway and pre-function
As
space
part of the
will be-
event center.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Thank you for that clarification. And then number 20, admission fee. User may not charge the admission fee without express written permission of the city. And I would assume that's more applicable to more like a concert or things like
Yes.
that. What if someone is wanting to do like an event and they're doing like a split the pot or something? Would
Ask
that
our permission.
just, that's part of that, okay. And then,
And the reason for that is just so then we can do our due diligence and make sure that what they are doing is legal. A split the pot would be gambling.
right, so they'd have to
So
get that.
we would need to
permit.
ensure that they have a gambling permit in order to
Correct.
do that. If they don't have a gambling permit, guess what they can't do? A split the pot.
No, right, but I'm just saying there's like at different pancake feeds or things like that, they do those things. So I just
Yes.
wanted to make sure that that's allowed, and it would
Correct.
just have to be run through your
Yes.
staff. Okay. Then
And
the
we
la-
have that same language in our current
okay,
contracts.
then the last one is number 24 on the insurance requirements.
Yes.
So if you're having a wedding, do you have to meet those requirements? I think that's in what, part of what the mayor was asking prior regarding who determines at what point do you need insurance?
That falls on me to determine if you need insurance. And it is basically we determine, you tell us what you're going to be doing, and I determine if there is a risk to the city and to the taxpayers of you doing that event. Is there a risk to a wedding? No. But if somebody is coming and doing a boxing event or cage fighting or something like that, I'm going to make sure that they have the proper insurances and everything.
This would be in conjunction with our insurance company, because there are some events, like Brian's alluding to, that our insurance company requires we make us an additional insured and add us on boxing, motorcycle riding, any of those kind of.
Sure.
Even youth hockey. Youth hockey has to list us as an additional insured. High school hockey, because there is a inherent risk associated with that activity.
And that has always been the way it
Yes.
is even currently? Okay.
Yes.
I just wanted that clarified, and then I'm comfortable with the rest of it. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Counselor Paulson. Before we go back to Counselor Johnson, which I didn't see your light on there until, so I apologize for that. Go to Counselor Freely and then over to Counselor Johnson. Counselor Freely?
Just with reference to what you made earlier about your premonition or your looking forward in the future, did you know that Tim McGraw actually performed at the Alcott Park in 1985?
I have heard that. So somebody had great foresight.
Yes, they did.
So I'm not quite that good yet. I haven't honed those abilities, so I'm looking at those groups that I know were big and are now affordable to try and bring to town.
Okay. Thank you. Counselor Johnson?
Mayor. Number 7, I'm just, because I can see this being a concern. So if I have a birthday party in the boardroom, I can bring in soda, or do I have to get,
You would have to go through our soda provider, which is us.
so I'm not okay with that because I can go to the dollar store and get a lot more soda. And I'm just trying to be community friendly here when it comes to why are we limiting who our audience is?
Number 7 says you cannot sell any soda.
Okay, so if I'm having a birthday party, that's,
Yeah, but
Fine.
alcohol is different. There's no alcohol
I'm
whatsoever
not going to give
without.
my 7-year-old alcohol. But no,
If your birthday party is where I'd like to have some alcohol.
Right, but I just want to make sure, so having a private party in the boardroom, that kind of soda is not going to be, we're talking about big events where they're selling the product. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I have one more clarification I know we're belaboring this, just drilling down to the nitty-gritty, but it's important that we do this. So the sale of beverages, the sale of beverages.
Yes.
So when the alcohol vendor sells alcohol and our beverage provider is separate, provides the beverages, if you're selling the alcohol, the whiskey 7, the 7-Up, does the bar have the ability to have it, or do they have to buy the
Absolutely.
7-Up from?
From us.
Our
Part of their RFP was they realized they have to use whatever vendor we have for non-alcoholic beverages.
Great, thanks for the
But
clarification.
we're all in line. If we're using vendor A, they're using vendor A.
Perfect, thank you. Counselor Paulson?
Thank you for that, and I truly don't mean to belabor this either, but I think
No,
that
no,
there is
it's
some
important, yeah.
kind of valid questions coming forward. So say, we can't limit anyone, but say somebody wants to have a wine tasting event. How do you deal with that?
In the RFP, the alcohol vendor does have the right and the ability to give up their alcohol rights for an event. I'm positive, knowing the three that have put in, that if somebody was wanting to do a wine tasting, these individuals that have put in the RFPs would say, absolutely, I'm not going to stand in the way of that and take a step back to allow a wine
Do
tasting.
we need to have some kind of a clause in there?
It was in the RFP.
It was already in there?
Yes.
Okay. I guess what comes to mind is there's some direct selling companies also that do that, and they have like in-home parties. So would that be allowed? Or, I mean, does the city have, I guess, who's the obligation to bypass that? It's the one who holds the liquor license? The vendor that we are choosing?
That would be, like you mentioned, we have it in the RFP, part of the agreement with the vendor we would choose is that there's times when we're going to have to agree that we're going to allow somebody coming in that's not selling alcohol necessarily, but by ticket only or by private party only. There are things that are going to happen that we have to all agree on.
So then, I mean, they would, how can I say this and get my question answered?
They would step back and
They
allow
would
the
step
city.
back because we would have the ability to tell them that?
Yes, and then the person that's renting it would have to have the liability insurance. That's where the liability insurance
Right.
kicks in.
Right.
So then that would be,
I just wanted to make sure that we're covered no matter who might come forward.
It's a
and
great
these are
point.
kind of some interesting scenarios, so.
That's what we're trying to do, and that's why we've got 2 pages of very small print and 37 different things, because we're trying to account for just about anything and everything that could occur.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So we're looking at adopting the rules and regulations here, and we're discussing that before we move forward. Councilor Johnson?
21 is smoking. Smoking in the MEC is prohibited at all times. Are we designating outdoor areas, or can they smoke anywhere? How does that fit into the big picture?
We will probably designate some outdoor areas, but inside the building, there is no smoking.
'Cause my concern would be, we're going to have a patio on the east side, and people during an event thinking, well, I'm outside, I can smoke. So does that need to be added on 21, that there will be designated areas, or is it, I'm concerned it's too general when it comes to when people are reading this going, well, let's just have an event outside, and we'll have the bar and everybody can smoke outside.
that's a great idea. We can definitely add a designated, smoking's only allowed in designated areas.
I think that would be appropriate.
I think,
And by looking at that, Councilor Johnson, by looking at that, you could follow some of the language that's established in the 1970 Minnesota Clean Indoor Air Act. Some of that language would be prudent and utilized as a Minnesota, as our outdoor actions of designated areas. Was it smoking will be provided designated, no smoking is allowed for the exception of designated areas, cooperation in extinguishing all smoking items and going to the designated area, those kind of things is important. So the Clean Air Act does have some language that you could maybe take a look at. Councilor Baraboo.
yeah, I think we need to go back and look at our ordinance. If I recall right, when we put that no smoking ordinance together, it was all city property they couldn't smoke on, if I remember right. So we'll have to make some exceptions to that ordinance. And I don't recall exact wording, but Brian, I think you may want to take a look at that,
Okay,
because
we can look
it's
at
in our
that.
ordinance right now, because I know we talked about it when we were doing, we said property. I know around City Hall, we couldn't smoke, they go on the sidewalk because it's public.
Yeah, I think it's 50 feet or something. There's something in the ordinance.
Yeah,
like that.
so we just need to look at that again and adjust it.
Yeah. There was a 25-foot rule.
25 feet from a city building,
25-foot rule, right?
I think so. 25 or 50, something.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, everybody okay? Any more questions with respect to the item number 6 on the number 5 on the agenda is consideration and approval of the rules and regulations as presented. We've had a lot of questions. I think they've been answered for us, so looking for council action moving forward. Councilor Johnson?
I would move that we adopt the rules and regulations with the adjustment of number 21 to present it at the council meeting on Tuesday.
Okay, thank you. Motion by Councilor Johnson to approve the rules and regulations for the MEC with an adjustment and amendment on item number 21. Is there support?
I'd support.
Support by Councilor Freelieb. Is there any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. You think item 6 is going to take a long time? Matt, are you a part of this, item 6? No?
Do we need, Mayor, do we need to take and approve the application that was part of 5? We haven't done that yet.
No, the application is just, it's actually a legal document that the league drew up for us, so we don't need to approve the application itself, just the rules and regulations that go with it.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Bearable. Okay, let's get item 6 going. It looks like we're going to have some significant discussion on item 7. So let's go to item number 6, and then we'll take a quick break. Item 6 is review the scope of work and cost estimates. I'm sorry, go ahead, Britt.
No, it's okay. Review the scope of work and the cost estimate for Phase 1, limited Phase 2, and a preliminary geotechnical evaluation for the MEC redevelopment area. This is actually for the Armory site. If you recall, staff was directed to get a price what it would cost. The tank has been removed. The soils have not been remediated. So we suspect, speaking with technical advisors, that there are some bad soils in that area.
So do we want to go down this path?
That's my question. And they're estimating the Phase 1 and Phase 2 are $7,500 total. The geotechnical that's involved after that, if they find something, they have to report to the state within 24 hours. And then we have to start a process of a plan for cleanup and remediation. That they're estimating it's at least $16,500 total with the Phase 2 and Phase 1 estimate and the geotechnical.
You know, I think this is an important piece of real estate that could be utilized for the entire block that we need in moving forward with economic development. And I know that's why we have John Sullivan on board to take a look at what our community development plan is and how we can move forward and utilize the curtilage that we have because we're landlocked. And I don't have a problem, but I mean, I would support moving forward with that, the cost-wise, but it's what happens after that. What do you discover? And then when you discover something, you know, how is that going to do it? So if we approve doing that and we make the find and may say there's something that needs to be remediated as a significant cost, even though the property owner owns that, who would be responsible for the remediation of that once those inspections are done? So that would be a question, you know, if I'm sure there's some kind of an agreement that if they find something that we're going to remediate it, or is this something that we have to remediate it, right?
Remediate it, yes. We have 24 hours to notify the MPCA, and then we have to submit an action plan, what we're going to do to remediate it once we find it.
So what happens
It
to
could
the...
take years for us to do that.
it could,
We
yeah.
could tell them that it's going to take us years, but once you know, and you have to do something about it.
Well, you know, I'm personally reluctant to move forward with it, because not to do the testing, but if we discover something, where are we going to get the money to move forward with that? If it's not petroleum, if it's something else, and I use the golf course as an example of how that could snowball into something significant. So, Councilor Bearable?
Yeah, and I have that same concern. If we don't own that property, which we haven't made a decision if we're going to even buy that property, I believe it's up to the private owner to do that remediation and stuff, because I've been around long enough. Once you get into these catch-22s and you go to Phase 2 and you find something bad, you're responsible for that. The ownership becomes a real mucky issue in that point, and I think our city attorney will tell you that. I'm not for this at this point in time, and unless there's somebody that has purchased that property and they want us to help with the remediation and stuff on that, unless we're going to buy it, which at this point in time, I don't believe we've had an interest in. So I'm against doing this at this point in time. Even if it's a future sale, that's up to the private individuals that may want to buy that piece of property.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Johnson?
I appreciate that the discussion on this has changed from, we absolutely have to have that property a couple weeks ago to, wait a minute, this is going to get expensive. And I said that at the last meeting where we discussed this. I'm concerned that of what's there. It used to be government property. And I think that we leave it alone. And if the market dictates that it's worth enough money for someone to buy it and invest in cleaning it up, then we assist as the pass-through, or however we've done that in the past. So with that, I'll make a motion that we receive and file this information until it's needed.
Okay, Counselor Johnson makes the motion to receive and file the scope of work and the cost estimate for Phase 1 and limited Phase 2, the preliminary geotechnical evaluation for the MEC development area, which is the Armory. Is there support?
I'll support Mayor for further
Support by
discussion.
Counselor Bearable. Further discussion, Counselor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. What did we actually ask, or what came forward? I just feel bad that NTS has put this time into this, so I guess I want to clarify what we asked to be done.
Staff was directed to find out what it would cost to start doing the initial environmental review in that corner of the MEC redevelopment area.
And I would agree, it's private property. My one question is, if the private owner chose to do this, the city could act as that pass-through agent. And then would there be a brownfield opportunity there to declare that at that time?
If there is a developer coming in, then it does make it a brownfield, but you have to have a signed development agreement or some.
In order to do that? Okay, all right, thank you for that, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Paulson. So it has been moved and supported to table, or actually to receive and file the scope of work as presented. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Freelieb.
Well, John, would you give your opinion in regard to the significance of this property to the city of Virginia, or any future plans that may become, to fruition as having that availed to the city?
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Sullivan.
Morning, Mayor, Council. Mr. Freelieb, as I testified back at I believe it was the Council of the Whole back in January, when I was just really green, when I think I was here a week or less. We had discussed the Armory site, and on the one hand, I think it's in a good location. I think it could be redeveloped. And I was supportive of finding out what does that entail? What could that price be from NTS and all that? I think I said it last time, and I'll reiterate it again. We don't own it. And once you go down that path, you're pregnant, so to speak. And I'm not interested in that right now. Just my personal opinion. It's up to you, but my advice to you would be to allow us, again, to use the tools that we can use to make a private development or developer put a project there. I'm hopeful that will happen, but I guess I would stop short of us purchasing it and cleaning it and doing all these things. So I hope that answers your question, Gary.
It does, yeah. I need that opinion, because we've made investments that at this point in time seem to be some white elephant type investments already, and I'd hate to see another one. Although this one, because of its location next to where we're putting in a multi-million-dollar brand new facility, is completely different than what we thought in terms of the other properties that we purchased. So in my mind, there's a much more significance and value to the proximity of that property to where we're developing now and what our plans are to develop that in the future. But the costs that we would incur and the potential for the costs that we would further incur for mitigating anything that's under there is, in my opinion, could be a negotiation point for offering a more reasonable price for that property as opposed to the potential asking price that I'm not sure of anyhow. But I mean, my only concern too with what you're saying is, and I agree that the market should be, the market opportunity should be availed, but my concern would be, what if somebody does come in there and puts in something that's just completely non-complementary to what we have built there and what we are anticipating having that utilized for? We wouldn't have any say in that whatsoever. And it could be something sitting there on that corner that's completely, disassociated from, you would hope not, but that's the potential if we in fact don't have the strings to pull with regard to what we'd like to see put there. But in any event, I'm fine with the recommendation that's made to think about this further, because your comment about we are pregnant then is definitely true when you jump into it to that degree. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Councilor Freely. We as a council try to come to a consensus on a variety of things. Each project has its own individual thank you, John, idiosyncrasies in a determination at the particular time is, should we buy this property, should we not? And I think we all have the understanding is that we look for what the future of our community is. It may not be a development opportunity today, but by having property available for development may be available for tomorrow and for the future generations, because and I think it's imperative that we take that action, even though we haven't developed some properties to date, we have that available for development. And so those empty spaces have been available for 35 and 40 years and never got developed. And so because we're landlocked, it's imperative that we find an opportunity to utilize whatever space we have within our curtilage to find a way in which to plan for our future. So it's not an immediate gratification about, we're going to buy this property, now we're going to develop it within a year. That's not the way things work. We do things incrementally over time. Sometimes you develop within a year, sometimes it takes 10 years, sometimes longer, but it's for the future of our community. So the decisions that we make today and what we made in the past are a direct result of what we need to do to secure our future, our economic stability and the vitality and the viability of our existence as a city. So I think we've done the prudent work that's been done, and I really believe that these projects are individual. This particular project is no different. So there is a motion on the floor to receive and file for the discussion. First, Councilor Paulson, then to Councilor Johnson. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you. After just listening to Councilor Friedlieb, I can appreciate where you're coming from, and I don't want to close the door on an opportunity. So my next question would be, is there something else that we can do to assist the owner going forward to actually conduct this testing and possibly contact the IRRB or be that pass-through entity? Like, I mean, just say he's looking at demolishing it. You know, we would have to take those steps anyway, like we did for the mall. I would, instead of closing the door, is there a different way that we can work together to accomplish a potential public-private partnership, or readying it for a developer, a future developer, but, you know, assisting the landowner, the building owner, the best way that we can?
Thank you, John. And as you come to the table, you know, we've already started that process as you about assisting, but we have the information we can provide to that private developer or to the current owner, you know, to move forward. So, Mr. Sullivan.
Yeah, I think the reason I had stated earlier that I wasn't interested in the city moving forward to actually jump in and purchase the property and try to rectify things is that I think these situations are better as a partnership, and the city and the private developer can enter into a development agreement. We can use all of our tools together to make a project actually work. So, and what those tools are would depend on what the actual development is. If it was retail, if it was, manufacturing. I know we have zoning limitations on that corner as far as what could actually be there, which I think would safeguard some of the issues that Councilor Friedlieb was concerned about. But I just think it's better as a partnership and working forward in that manner. And depending on the development, depending on the number of type of jobs, depending on the type of building, there's a lot of ifs and possibilities, but in the end, it would be better to use our tools to assist a private developer and to get it back on the tax rolls instead of us kind of rolling the dice and sitting on it for how many years and not knowing what's gonna happen there.
Okay, thank you.
I hope that answers your question. Okay.
Thank you. Counselor Johnson, then to Counselor Bearable.
John, this might be a question for you. Can we designate that space around the miners in that part of 8th Street for as a specific zone? So we do have the control that Counselor Friedlieb is concerned about? Is there a way to do that as a city so that we can make sure that everything there complements or whatever is built there complements the miners? Is that something we can look at moving forward?
I would think when we look at our zoning revisions with the planning commission coming up, we can look at that in further detail and discuss it.
I just think having that as a built-in, a catch that by Wabick, everything built downtown looks like a chalet village, or, if there's something that we can do or we need to do that says when you build in the vicinity of the miners moving forward, this is how it needs to fit the aesthetics with colors or materials or that kind of thing. And maybe that's also a Brian answer to, or the city attorney, Brian, they're both sitting next to each other. Thank you.
Brian, is it simply a zoning change?
Correct. There are tools that we can use, and there are things that the city can put in place to ensure that community kind of looks uniform, or that things come together in the way that we envision it. So absolutely, it's a possibility.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Johnson. Counselor Bearable.
Yeah, that was the only thing I was going to mention before, that I believe it's zone commercial B, correct? I believe it's, so we can change all of that zoning through our zoning commission. So that's all I was going to mention also.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me, Mayor, one thing I was going to dovetail on with what Brian had mentioned. Right now, Britt, I believe we refer to it as the MEC and the redevelopment area, and not just the Armory property either. There's the church down the way, and there's things like that. So I think we'd have to look at it instead of just this little corner as a little bit broader of an area. Not to, I think, Steve, you were probably saying that as well, but I just wanted to clarify that at this point on some of our concept plan drawings with DSW, we've got, it states that it's the redevelopment area. So I think that thinking and those planning lines are already kind of beginning. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
One last comment.
Thank you, John. So I know we've gone off a tangent, which is important to do that, but the motion on the floor is to review the scope and estimate. There is a motion to receive and file this until further information is moving forward. So further discussion, Councilor Friedlieb.
And I'm not pushing anything, but just kind of putting some things out there to think about. The fact that, that sat there for many years as kind of a choice property for the city to acquire, and particularly so for the development around the new MEC now. And the owner, the benefit to us is that the owner came to us first, essentially for first right of refusal. So he too recognizes the value of that property to the city of Virginia. And there was, rumors out there in town in terms of what he was going to want for that property. My understanding is about a third of what was the rumor or whatever. So, he's being fair with regard to the opening potential allotment that he'd want for that. So in any event, we got lots to think about, and at this point in time, it sounds as though the consensus is not to move forward with the city necessarily purchasing it and or getting themselves into the thick of potentially having to mitigate environmental concerns at that property, and I'm certainly okay with that, but do still have some concerns with regard to how we can, formulate some plan with regard to what we would like to see happen there as opposed to what could happen there, if that makes sense. Thank you.
It does, thank you. And I think that's what John was alluding to. We have the information. We can work with the private owner and our planning department and coming up with some way in which to find out the way to develop that property moving forward. What's good about the scope of work that was done that we did, we approved, is to give us that information and the property owner the information so that can facilitate additional conversations and discussions and potential negotiations moving forward. And to your point, Councilor Freely. So it's moved and supported. Councilor Barnzelli.
Thank you, Mayor. I think all of us were here when we purchased the Dairy Queen up in Midway. It's still ours. And,
The Midway Motel, you mean?
yeah, the motel.
Yeah.
And I voted against that 5 different times, but finally I gave in. I think that's what you're saying. Do we want to put our money out there and wait until somebody comes along and develops it? You know, I don't know. I hate to put a lot of money into property. Like going to Washki's, do we own that land on that curve?
We did?
We did or do?
We did. We no longer own that. Washki owns it. We bought it for $1 from Essentia Clinic, and we spent over $600,000 and more to demolish in preparation for that site, and then entered into a project development agreement for Washki to build its new facility there.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I hate to, if we have to buy it, we have to buy it, but I hate to spend our money. We're having a problem with the miners with money. I mean, you know, what Brian told us today. So, I don't know how we could have first choice at it if it was for sale, or if somebody wants it, we would buy it, but if nobody wants it, I don't want to put our dollar out there. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think right now, Councilor Barnzelli, there is a motion on the floor from Councilor Johnson and seconded by Councilor Freely, or no, Councilor Bearable. Who seconded it?
I did.
Okay, moved by Councilor Johnson and seconded by Councilor Bearable to receive and file the information that we have and not to move forward with additional testing for the purpose of purchasing the property, and to leave that information in abeyance, provide that information to the property owner, and allow our city staff and our community planner the opportunity to work with the owner of the property and potentially maybe move forward with some kind of a development agreement in the future. So that's the motion on the floor. Is moved and supported. Is there any
Mayor,
further discussion? Yes,
My
Councilor
motion is
Johnson.
just to receive and file, none of
Right.
the other stuff. Just
Correct.
to receive and file.
Right, that's a motion on the floor, just to receive and file this information, which okay, let's just vote on that. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Okay, so the purpose is that to say we have the information and it can be disseminated at some future time. It's public information, it can go to the property owner moving forward. So if we've received and filed, it's sit there, that information is available for the public, and so we're not take any other action at this time. Is that correct? That is correct. So thank you. All right, let's just take 5 minutes.
Mayor, may I make a motion?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Just because I'd like to include what part of your discussion was, so could I move to direct city staff and to convey back to the landowner all of the information and have that discussion? That would be my motion.
Yeah, thank you.
I'd
Thank
support
you.
that.
Moved by Councilor Paulson and supported by Councilor Freely to provide the information that we've discovered in the scope and cost estimate for Phase 1 and limited Phase 2 for the geotechnical at that MEC redevelopment area, which is the armory to the property owner. Is that correct? So it's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. 5 minutes, please, and then we'll move to item 7. Okay, after a short break, we're back. Britt?
Item number 7 on the agenda is the review the Public Safety Center architect firm's proposals. On February 24th, 2021, the Buildings and Grounds Committee, along with the Public Safety Center interview panel, which consisted of the fire chief, the police chief, the deputy police chief, the community development planner, the finance director, and myself, conducted interviews of the 4 firms who responded to the city's request for statement of qualifications for this project. Each firm was given the same time allotment and were asked to prepare answers to questions that they were notified of a week in advance. The answers to the questions at the interview were scored by the interview panel. And all 4 of them were extremely qualified and very, we'd be very comfortable with any of them doing the work. Sorry about that. The question is, that we're at now is how would the council like to proceed with these architect firms?
Okay, thank you, Britt. Well, I have some comments and questions, but I would like to review, I would like to hold my questions and comments in abeyance and hear from the interview panel, from particularly the Buildings and Grounds Committee, and those kind of things, and what your recommendation is and how you'd like to proceed moving forward. So, does anybody want to comment before Councilor Freely?
Yeah, I sat in on the whole thing for the 4 hours we were there, and as you can see, the top 2 scores are within a half a point-ish apart. And that's understandable, because they were both exceptional in their presentation. And so, at the conclusion of their presentations, I told them both that I would be more than comfortable with either of those firms representing what we need to do. But at the end of it, I stated, and during one of the presentations, they were talking about what we're going to be doing with you, but more importantly, what we're going to be doing, what we're going to be doing for you, but then more importantly, what we're going to be doing with you. And I think that's really critical. And even more critical than that in my closing statement was who's doing it with us. And my lean would be, like we talked about just the other day, shopping local. Do we not want to have some connections with local agencies and local people that know the area and know the people, and so that's where my lean was with regard to if I had to select that. I was very impressed with the Wold. The one thing I guess I don't know enough about, and Chief Lewis would probably want me to know more about that, is what experience DSGW has with actual construction of a combined police and fire facility, as opposed to the experience maybe Wold has with that or whatever. I don't know that, and I didn't really gain that expertise, I guess, from the presentation that was provided to us. But that would certainly come into play in terms of what we're trying to accomplish, what we actually need to have up here. Does the local group have that kind of experience with that specific type of facility we're looking to build as opposed to the other? But with regard to the scores, it's not surprising that it was that close and it was that tight. And given that differential, I would lean in the direction of working with people that are currently working with us on a facility that we're building in this community right now. So but at the same time, when other factors are considered with regard to the experience or the other types of facilities that they've been involved in building, I would take that into consideration as well. They're both very capable of doing what needs to be done. But from the who factor, some of these who factors are right in my own community and are currently working elbow to elbow with us right in this community. So that's kind of my lean with regard to where I was at the end of the presentation. Just kind of FYI. So thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councilor Freely. Anybody else? Councilor Beyondich.
Thank you. I also attended that meeting by phone. But they were all very well, had very good presentations. But I would like to hear from actually I wish Chief Mattson were here, but also from our fire chief, because they have to live within this building. they know what they need. So I would like to have conversations also with them as to how they feel about it.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Beyondich. Yeah, we're starting at the council level, we'll move down to staff level and department head level, particularly those who are affected by that, which is really good to your point. I wonder if Chief Mattson was available. We would like to hear from her as well. I don't know if we could see if she's available. Britt, thank you very much. So, Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess for me, it's hard to have a discussion, not knowing what the chiefs want and what they, I've got some ideas of what I've heard as I've been doing my ride-alongs, which I haven't for a year, but those kinds of things. So I know what I've heard directly from the staff, but not knowing the presentations as it was a committee meeting, what was said and what was presented, other than what Wold presented here, which is, my understanding is this is what they do for a living, is they build public safety type places. Some of the pictures are amazing. One of the things that I noticed on here, and it was mentioned by one of the staff, is having a space where families and people can come during a 24-hour shift or a 12-hour shift, and folks can have lunch together. We can, and to me, that's one of the important things coming from the staff. The direct line staff is, they're doing that now in the parking lot by City Hall, or they're having to meet in the ambulance bay. And I don't know, since we just have the one presentation, but that Wald knew enough to include that and make us aware that this is a need. The other thing I want to see as we move forward is that whoever we award this to listens to us about what our priorities are. One of my frustrations has been, as we started this process a year ago, was the west entrance to the miners, and how that was an ad alternate. How at the very beginning of the designs, we had talked about getting rid of the medians. That was not conducive to good plowing. It was an extra add-in. And yet I was just cleaning the desk, and I was looking at that proposal. And yet that one thing that we were all very clear about not being a part of the overall bid continued to be in all of our documents until we finalized it. And that frustrated me. And so whoever we choose, I think now that we've done this once, we as a council have been through a major project. And I think that's important that now we're going to be a little bit more savvy about how we start the project. And that's going to be one of the things I'm going to be looking for, is when we start, are we being listened to about what we feel our absolute must-haves are, as opposed to what we might negotiate on, and designing and having the conversations that way, instead of continually being told, no, that's a deduct. We'll take it out. Well, just take it out and let's go with that. So there's some frustration that I have as we've gone through the MEC project, and now we're looking at another major project. But I really want to hear from the people, again, who are going to be coordinating the project and hands-on, as I'm sure both Chief Mattson and Chief Lewis are going to have a similar role as Brian in this process, because it is their building. And again, we're combining two entities that are in general not together. I've taken a lot of comfort over the last year seeing police cars parked out in the front of the fire department during meal time, or that communication is something that both teams have been working on. And this is going to help bring them together in a common facility. And I just think those things are all important. So I would ask to hear from the chiefs as well.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I would concur with everyone else that would like to hear from both Chief Mattson and Chief Lewis if available. Just to make a couple comments, I appreciated the interview questions. I thought they were very thorough questions. And I appreciate the group that was assembled to go through those one by one with each of the firms. My next question is, in our packet is is the Wold presentation and none of the other presentations. I would have liked to have had those so I could understand how each firm answered each of those questions. When I went through and matched up the questions and what Wold's responses were, they were right on the target, very matched up and very pointed. But I don't have any other information to base that on anything else on because I don't have that information. So my question is, was this just put in the packet because that was the top percentage getter? Is that kind of how that arrived at that way? Okay.
And we certainly can get the other ones if the council would like to see them. It's very valid. It's probably a good idea to have them all and look at them.
Okay. So that being said, I guess I would like to hear from just some recommendations from both of the chiefs if available.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Councilor Paulson. Councilor Bearable, then to Councilor Johnson. Councilor
Yeah.
Bearable.
We have some of the information sitting on our desk, at least I had it on my desk from the other companies, but I would like the same thing that Julianne would like, how the questions got answered. There's one thing I asked Brett this morning, and I didn't know it was in the packet because I missed it when I went through the old package, but my concern was all these companies that have done projects of this magnitude, that I wanted to see some of their projects that they've done, their bids versus their end result of where their final costs were. And my understanding was the only one that provided that at this point was Wold. Is that correct?
Oh, they all
They all
was one of the
did. See, I would
questions.
like to see those other ones then too.
And I can tell you, they all, of course, provided
Yeah, and
information.
I didn't get a chance to read any of this stuff. I'm assuming it came into our possession here probably on Monday or somewhere there. It was in our packet, but I was gone.
It's actually emailed to you separately.
Yeah, okay. And I didn't see it because I was gone and I didn't get a chance to read it yet. So I'm looking to have this, and I noticed the one thing that I've been concerned about our architect projects and stuff are all these cost overruns we're running in. And Wold, if you look at theirs, I just happened to see theirs in the packet. Theirs was basically, most of them were under their cost estimates that they had. There was a couple that were over, but their final costs were below or a little tiny bit above what they had. So they didn't have a lot of cost overruns. I'd like to see that information for the rest of the companies also. That's a huge amount of dollars in the end when you get cost change orders and stuff. And I have a philosophy here that if we end up continuing to be short when architects do their work, and it's something we haven't asked for, I believe it's something that should have been done and should have been anticipated, that they need to go to their errors and omissions insurances and start picking up some of the costs on this stuff, and not us as a city picking up these costs, even though we got contingencies. I'm getting tired of everything we bid out there, including street projects, that they don't anticipate a lot of things that they have. And I've been around long enough that I've seen this over and over and over and time again. So I want to see some more information and hear from our two chiefs. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Johnson once again, then go to Councilor Freelieb, and then I have a couple of comments. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you. And I also, we're following a process here, so I'd like to make sure from the attorney if he's got any input or anything that we need to be aware of as we continue to move forward in the process.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Freelieb?
In those discussions too, one key factor and one key personnel, and which is one of the largest tasks or challenges, or as they said, opportunities, is the acquisition of the properties, somewhat near 70 plus parcels in town. I don't know what percentage are still inhabited. So that kind of negotiation experience with people is going to be key and critical to the success of even moving forward with this project. And both DSGW and Wold had what I read, and I did get the opportunity to listen to Sandy Hoff, who was representing DSGW, who is locally networked out of Duluth, I believe, with F.I. Salter. Did not get to listen to Sonia Henning, but in further research had found nothing but good things to be said about her, and I believe she's based out of Duluth and is a civil engineer with multiple years of experience. So in that regard, given the enormity of that task, those two people are key, and both of these outfits have, I think, exceptional people in those positions, just so you know that.
Thank you, Councilor Freely. So I'd like to reserve my comments to the end. So I'd like to hear from the other members of the committee, of the interview committee. I see Chief Lewis is here. Chief, would you like to make any comments or make a presentation or have any information that you'd like to disseminate to us today? Good morning, Chief.
Absolutely, and good morning, Council, and thank you for this opportunity. So it's been quite a long journey. We've been on this fire station, well, initially it was just a fire station, remember? Initially it wasn't a public safety building, but fortunately we got a police chief that saw the value in having a combined public safety facility about halfway through the project, and that's when we brought in Brunton Architects to do the design and the programming for it. I've had the opportunity to work with Brunton over the last 4 years, so I know them better than any of the other companies. As Britt said, they all made good presentations. It's a little difficult in a 45-minute presentation with 10 minutes of questions to select what's going to be the future for the next, three and a half, almost 4 years in designing. So there's a very methodical process that I employ, and I'm sure you guys know I use data a lot of times. So I start looking at the history of all of these companies that submitted their request for qualifications. And when I did that, I looked at who does projects that are similar in scope and size. Really, the only one that comes close when you take their company as a standalone to doing a project anywhere close to our scope and size is Wold. The rest of them, they'll say, oh, we've done fire departments. Yeah, they have. Some are combination departments, some are volunteer departments. They're not facilities that have 24-hour living quarters and standards. There's some that have partnered with companies. I know Five Bugles was here, but I didn't recognize any of the people from Five Bugles. Well, one, the first Five Bugles study that was done, the principal of that company is unfortunately deceased, and the principal that worked on our project to do our site location actually has left and is with another company. So there is a lot of changeover in these companies, and I understand that. But when I look at relevant projects, I looked at Brunton. They did the Albert Lee Fire and Rescue Station. Now, that is a career department. And that is one that really most closely represents it. But again, it doesn't approach the cost factor that we're looking at. It's probably about half of what we're looking at for a combined public safety facility. Wold did a very, very nice job, at the city of Minnetonka, and I know our city planner has seen that facility. So those two really moved up as far as, in my estimation, about what they could do. I would mention that there was supposed to be one other fire person on the panel, but they had to get pulled from being on the panel to deal with fire department issues that day. So we didn't really get our two people on there. It was just me. The ratings, again, I think reflect that just a little bit. So again, Brunton has done a lot of fire stations, and they don't have the law enforcement experience. Wold has a lot of public safety experience in doing both of those facilities. Partnerships that DSGW has had with the Five Bugles, and then partnerships that SEH has had also bring into it. I'll talk about the positive. USDA projects that Brunton has had would be the Clarks Grove Fire Station and the Kenyon Fire Station. Again, so they have had fire stations that were USDA projects. That's a very, very large part of what we're doing. Some of the other ones did not have public safety projects that were USDA funded. And a building isn't just a building. There was an incredible amount of, and these are things I picked up on, would be the focus on cancer. As being, part of something we have to deal with in the fire service, those hot and cold zones. Other than, securing issues for evidence in the police side, it really is a structure with, some secure, some specialties such as interview rooms, the hard and soft interview rooms. But when you get into firefighting and you look at the risk we face with cancer, you look at air displacement, you look at, the floor drains, you look at the cleanliness and the decontamination stations. You look at how fast the doors open and close. You look at energy efficiency things, which of course can apply to other buildings beyond fire or fire EMS and public safety. But when I look at the totality of the evidence on the structures that have been built, again, Brunton rises to the top in fire stations. Wold also comes right up there as far as public safety, fire, and police as well. And they built stations that even have holding facilities and things like that. And I even heard that referred to in one of the presentations, which I kind of scratched my head for a bit and went, okay, we're not doing a jail here, but they have had that experience. So again, if there's any questions, I'll take any questions, but that's just my recommendation. Oh, I should mention I've called chiefs on a lot of these departments that were listed here and talked to the chiefs about the process. The process that is used by Brunton to avoid these cost overruns is significant. They don't do billing the client for change orders. There is a very, very specific process for that. They do a lot of planning on the front end, so they're not making mistakes on the back end and then saying, here's the bill. You don't have any door locks. That kind of stuff. That shouldn't be happening. And they work very, very hard to make sure those things don't happen. So I'll take any questions about, I know this is going to go on for probably some time, so.
No, I appreciate your comments. I think we all appreciate your comments, but we have a couple lights on. First, we'll go to Councilor Beyondich, and then over to Councilor Bearable. Councilor Beyondich.
Thank you. And I guess I was very enlightened on your job and what you do when I became a member on the Shared Fire Service. And I didn't really understand the scope of the safety that you and your crew have to be careful when you're dealing with these fires and all the things involved in it. So it is a lot more than just a building. And for me personally, I look to you and I look to Chief Matty on what you need, what you're comfortable with, and try to meet those needs. You're the one who you have to live in that building. So your input is very valuable. And I would also like to hear from Chief Matty and just have more dialogue on how this process will go. But your input is huge for me on what this building needs to keep everybody safe and comfortable. So thank you. And thank you for taking care of the fire on Sunday. I have to give you a shout out. What you do is phenomenal. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and could I just respond? So on the carcinogens and the safety aspect of it, one of the things you saw in that fire yesterday, and I just thought of this now, is that when I came here maybe, almost 6 years ago, you didn't see firefighters being hosed down as soon as they got out of that burning structure. Now you see that. Every time they come out, all of that insulation, all of that cellulite, all of that charcoal, they're being hosed down, they're being scrubbed down, then they're going into rehab, they're getting their blood pressure checked, they're getting hydrated with fluids. That has been a cultural shift that has happened over the last few years. Also, when I came here, there was only one woman on the fire department. With this next round of hiring, if we hire the ones that we're looking at, 30% of our department will be women firefighters. So there's a gender equity issue. We'll go from a woman climbing inside of a locker to change her clothes to actually having a dedicated space. And, that is something, who even would consider that we now, according to current regulations, need to have a room specifically designated for new mothers to express milk? That's a requirement. And we will need to have that in the new public safety building. So, we've changed in our makeup of personnel, we've changed in our culture, and we've changed in how we address the fire and life safety risks to us. And I will just give a shout out to all of the other departments that helped us. There was 9 different departments on that fire, over 50 firefighters at a time. And our firefighters and the Virginia Police Department and a sheriff's deputy literally grabbed a woman that was trapped by fire from the downstairs window. So she came out the window as firefighting efforts were going on in the front of that building. So talk about teamwork when you have all of those 3 that just happen to show up at the same time and catch this lady. And then there's 2 very happy cats too. So there's that.
Okay, thank you, Chief. So, Councilor Bearable.
Yeah, Chief, I just have a quick question for you. From listening to you carefully here for the last few minutes, Wold came out with the number one point value from the interview process. Now, it looks to me, and I haven't looked at all the other things yet because I was gone and not available. I was out of town to look at all the rest of them. But what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing from you is the fact that they have experience in both ends of it, fire and public safety, where some of the other ones may not have that same experience. Am I reading you right on this?
You are reading me right. I would say that some
And I
of,
think that's so very important when you have architectural design on both ends, that I'm pretty comfortable right now with just the one recommendation that came from the staff. I'd still like to see the balance of the information from the interviews, but I think I'm comfortable with Wold right now because of their experience on both ends. And that's very, very important. And it looks like they've got some pretty big facilities that they've worked on here. From the list I look at in size and scope, you've got Burnsville, you got Egan, you got these big departments and stuff. There's none of them that have, I don't believe in that have the same type of combination we have in a fire department. I may be wrong.
no, I went through and their combination departments that you're looking at. They're large combination departments, but they are combination.
Yeah. So anyway, I appreciate your comments on this, and I'm fairly comfortable right now with the recommendation that the committee has made, but I'd still like to see the other information first.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to take a few minutes and make a couple of comments about a variety of things with respect to, first it's process, first it's responsibility, recommendations, and moving forward. So I'll start with the process. We started this process a long time ago. It's taken a long time for us to get here. When we went to the state legislature for the $9.5 million, it was important, and the reason we received that money was primarily because we were having a combination public safety facility. It wasn't because we needed a new fire hall. That was one of the factors. But what brought it over the top, what it brought it to the end line in the last hour of the bonding bill, was the fact that this was a combination regional fire EMS facility, which included the combination of fire, EMS, law enforcement, and training, a regional facility component. And so when we look at that process, we've come to the conclusion that that's what we have to do, and that's what we're moving forward with. We have selected a bunch of sites that are available. We selected one that is the site of choice. That may not be the site where this goes. There may be some issues there. We don't know, but there's a potential. We have other sites available. So we've done the process. We've conducted our due diligence. We're ready to move forward. So that's why we're here today, is with the architectural portion of it. And part of that was to go out for interviews and RFPs, and the interviews was conducted, and this is another part of the process. Staff, along with department heads and members of the Building and Grounds Committee, the elected officials of the City Council, all met with the individuals who provided this RFPs and listened to the interviews and scored them. And that was important for me to understand the fact that, you know, these are recommendations coming from a variety of parts of the city, the elected officials, the department heads, and our administrative staff. And it came to the conclusion that these are the top 1, 2, 3, and 4 contenders. So the next step of the process, like it is with anything else when you conduct an interview for employment, maybe you do a second round of interviews, or maybe you take a look at what those facilities are to offer. So because Wold and 5 Bugles in DSW are so close in the scoring based upon, you know, what the staff and everybody is recommending, that I think it's prudent for us, you know, in the compressed time frame that we have, to continue to do our due diligence with the process by looking at what Wold and what the number 2, which is DSW and 5 Bugles, have to offer. So by accomplishing this, we can accomplish 2 things. You know, I think we need to invest a little bit of money in visiting some of these facilities that both DSGW and 5 Bugles built and Wold built, or wherever you want to do it, and take a look at those facilities as they were built. Now, You get information about who built the facility, but more importantly, who was the architect? How did you work with the architect? What were the issues with respect to that? What issues did you have with them? Were you satisfied with the work they had to do? If you had to do something different, what would it be? That's all part of that process. And you could see not only the architectural design, talk to the people the communities who hired these architects. Did they get their bang for the buck? Did they get what they need? Did they have the information moving forward? And then that also helps us again as we move from the architectural, once the architectural firm is selected, then we go with if we're going to go with a construction manager or who's going to build a facility, all those kind of things. It's important to continue to move down the path of the process, try to come to a conclusion on where we want to be. So right now, we're in the selection process for the architect. This is just the first step. The site acquisition is unknown. And so we're moving toward that. So it's important for us to find, I think it's the 7 acres of what we're looking at, where we're going to build this facility. So the architects will have to look at it properly. That's inclusive of all the things that we need for fire, EMS training, and law enforcement. That includes not just law enforcement facilities, but investigation things, vehicle processing, evidence security, narcotics security, all those kind of things, in storing and inside storing of the equipment and the maintenance and all those things that go in with a bigger facility like Minnetonka and Maplewood and all these other facilities. Whoever built those, I think we have to select some of them from the number 1, some of them from the number 2, and go out and look at those. And if you want to move farther to 3 and 4, that's fine. But I think taking the top 2 and looking at what they have to offer before you make a decision on who to select, I think I would like to see that. That's prudent for me to do. We've heard from Chief Lewis and his perspective on things and his personal experience. We haven't heard from Chief Mattson about what her issues are, but these are combination of police and fire facilities. You don't necessarily have to look at all those, but I think we do have to select some moving forward. So that's where I'm looking at moving forward. So I reserve additional comments later on. We'll move to Councilor Johnson, and then on to Councilor Bearable, and then on to Councilor Paulson. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I think it's important to echo what you're saying about your female firefighters. Right now, the Virginia Police Department has basically a bathroom in which they change in downstairs. The facilities in the squad room are archaic at best. Cables, floors, plugged in pizzerias and coffee pot. I mean, so not to negate what's needed, but also, their voice, I want to make sure they're equal voices, and I know you respect that. You have to work, you do work hand in hand. I have to agree with Councilor Baraboo right now about the recommendations. The committee of 8 people or however many vetted. I do want to see other facilities. I think that'll be important as we look at design items, and I think we need to make sure, as we did with the miners, that we're including officers and paramedics, firefighters on those tours if we so choose, because they're going to be the ones that identify that won't work for us. When we're going through the miners tours, having the direct line staff saying, yeah, this looks really cool, but nobody uses this door. Nobody from the hockey team comes in this door, even though that's why it was put here. So that as we move forward, we can make sure we get it right. The process is going to take a long time. I think that to go against the recommendation would take a pretty substantial amount of evidence for me. I'd like to see, I would like to see other ones. I'd like to line up, if we're looking at the top 2, the top 2 with the public safety aspect. This is what we did. This is the percentage of role we took in it. If a designer, if they did 10% of it and everything else was farmed out, and the other one does 75% of it and 25% farmed out, that is important to me. Because why wouldn't we pay for the person with the more experience on direct contact? And that's where I'm leaning, looking at this, scrolling through these pages. It's a very professional, of course, presentation, but just some of the little things on here about the knowing again, for me to have been on the ride-alongs prior, it just, the perspective I feel I bring to this is humbling to me, that we're trying to create a facility that meets the needs of the employees, but then looking at one of the slides talks about how they made sure to design it to fit the community. So it wasn't a bunch of houses and then all of a sudden this great big concrete nasty looking building and more houses. That Wold looks into how do we make it fit. I think we could probably move forward today with, because obviously it's not official until Tuesday's meeting, and we can have this discussion if something comes back from the other proposals that's just knocks it out of the park the other way. But because then I think that will also give the staff some security in knowing we're moving forward, and we can start looking at the details. So I too am ready to move forward with the recommendation today.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. Councilor Bearable. And then Councilor Paulson. Okay, Councilor Paulson.
She hasn't had a chance to talk yet.
Who?
Julianne had a chance to talk.
Hasn't had a chance to talk all this time?
Talking all day.
I think you've been sleeping. Okay, Councilor
On this
Paulson.
subject, that's
Councilor
clear.
Paulson first,
Thank
and
you.
then back to Councilor
Thank you,
Bearable.
Mayor. I guess after listening to, Chief Lewis and understanding that is the recommendation that is in our packet, is Wold. And without hearing from Chief Mattson, I would agree that was Chief Mattson there and part of that scoring process?
She was, and she's in the laser training right now. Her and Chad are both in training, so they're not able to come up here. But they were part of the scoring process.
Okay. I would be comfortable moving this forward with the caveat that we get maybe the additional information from the other firms that applied, but I would be comfortable moving this forward. So I'll go ahead and make a motion to move this forward to approve Wold as the architect firm to the committee or council meeting.
So your motion is to recommend Wold as the architect for the public safety project.
Correct.
Okay, moved by Councilor Paulson. Is there support?
Go ahead, Steve.
Support for further discussion?
Support by Councilor Johnson. Further discussion? I'll reserve my comments for last. Further discussion, Councilor Johnson, because you seconded for further discussion, and then to Councilor
That's
Bearable.
fine.
Councilor Johnson.
Can we have Brian Lindsay come up and give, if he has any opinion as we're moving forward with the process and what we should be looking at?
Okay, thank you. Our city attorney of record, Brian, good morning once again.
Good morning,
Brian
Mayor.
Lindsay.
Mayor, Council. Councilor Johnson, I think to address your question, this is essentially what we're hiring for is a professional service, and so we're not held to any bidding requirements. That being said, if we started down a course and set a course that the city's to follow, we should stick to that course as closely as possible. And it sounds like we've received some requests for proposals. We've held some interviews and done some scoring, and so I don't think that there's any problem in collecting some additional information, but if we've set out parameters for the course that we're going to follow, we should, as best as we can, stick to those parameters. But as far as a legal requirement in bidding and the like, this is a professional service contract, so we should be in good shape.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Bearable.
Yeah, that's all I was going to say. This doesn't fall within any parameters we have to go out for bids or anything, because there's an exemption in the law for architectural work. You can go way above the $175,000 limit on other things. So I'm very comfortable with the motion on the floor.
Thank you. And just one quick comment. I had the opportunity when I was working down at the airport for the Metropolitan Airports Commission when they completely revamped the entire police department, et cetera, all over. And I had an opportunity. I was assigned by my chief of police to sit on that as the design committee with respect to how the police department operates and inclusive of all those little idiosyncrasies that police and fire want to come together. Fire was involved, police was involved, even though there were separate facilities built, one side of the field, one on the other. There was some common ground with respect to how that works. So going through an architectural design, it was not painstaking because the airport commission had an in-house architect. And so they utilized that on a regular basis. That was an architect of record. It was a professional service that they provided. And so, we don't have an architect of record. But so the services that are provided are based upon what the needs are. And so the recommendation on the floor right now is moved and supported to recommend Wold as the architect of record. I'm going to go along with the consensus because that's the recommendation of the committee. But I still think that because these number one and number two are so close together, within 0.06 percentage points or whatever it is, that it would be prudent for us to take a look at both of those architect firms that provided built facilities throughout, the region. But the motion on the floor is for Wold, and I'll honor that recommendation by staff and vote in favor of it. So it's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing, you have some more good discussion? Councilor Barnzelli.
I support Chief Lewis's recommendation. He's the man. I mean, he knows what's going on compared to what we know about fires. So I think that's a good choice, Chief.
Okay, it's been moved and supported to recommend Wold as the architect for the public safety project. We'll be moving that forward to the council for final approval on March the 9th. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No. And if I could clarify, I'll only clarify, and this is not an indictment. I mean, I
Well,
respect.
we'll take the roll call first, and then
I'm sorry.
we'll take roll call first. Councilor Friedman, thank you. Roll call.
Beyondich,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Aaronzelli. Yes. Huffy,
Aye.
Baraboo,
Aye.
Friedlieb,
No.
Paulson.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-1. Councilor Friedman.
And clarification is just that DSGW actually was awarded that on my point system, I mean, on my score sheet. So, I mean, they were the top vote getter or point getter on my score sheet. So that's why I feel obligated to vote no. But it's not an indictment at all on the consensus for moving forward with what we need to accomplish. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And there's another week for all of us to think about the process and if there's any additional, if we have other information that's coming forth, and maybe, we'll have more information that may warrant further discussion. But at this point in time, it's passed to move to the city council for official adoption and vote. Anything else? Being none, thank you. We'll move to the next item, please, Britt.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the renaming of the engineering department, and in your packet, I had asked staff to put their thinking hats on and come up with some names.
And your recommendation is?
I don't have one.
Mine has always been, simple, where people want to know where they want to go. You got planning, permitting, and inspections. So if I gotta need a permit, they know we got to go to room 305 or whatever that is. If it's planning, then you got to go there. If whatever they need, they know that they got to go to that room. So anyway, council? Is there any recommendation from those who are working in that capacity and in planning and permitting and inspections as to what they feel is the Councilor Johnson?
A soft spot for community development. And putting permitting inspection after it or something like that, substituting planning for community development, I just think it portrays us looking at moving forward. We're not just planning stuff, we're actually doing something. We're developing our community and then through permitting and inspection. So that would be my recommendation is number 2, and just swapping planning for community development. It's a little bit longer, but I think it really defines what we want or what I want out of that department as we're moving forward.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Johnson. Anyone else? Councilor Baraboo?
Yeah, I like community development there, but I think permits, planning, and I believe, what was it, code enforcement? Inspections. They just all fall under that, and just hit it with a simple title and then have some sub-things underneath it, like a second header with the other, like you suggested, Mayor, planning, permitting, and inspections. We just have a main header, because all it is community development overall.
Okay, thank you.
But I think community development is the way to go. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? No.
Aye. this department. So that'd be my suggestion. I don't have a problem either way.
Okay, well, that settles it. No, not really. So what, we're looking for a recommendation here moving forward. That can be that, whatever works. Counselor Johnson, do you have something else?
I'll make a motion because then we can make a decision. I will move that we officially name it the Community Development Department, and then we can put planning permanent, that can fall underneath it.
Excellent. Okay, very good. Thank you. Moved by Counselor Johnson. With that verbiage, did you get that, Pam? Support by?
I'll support Mayor, or Fried.
Counselor Freelieb? Okay, Counselor Freelieb supports. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. That was the fastest one on the list.
Item number 9 is review the updated purchasing policy, and one of the changes we need to make now is the new department name for engineering.
Right.
And then state statute has changed for when we have to go out for RFPs. Instead of 100,000, it's now 175.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So in our favor for a little bit more.
Yes, it is. And that would be the changes in the policy.
Okay, thank you. So I know we've reviewed this policy at length, and there was a lot of discussion. We came up with the policy. Now there's some amendments that have to be done to the updated policy. So I'll move to the council for further discussion and comments. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry, I had a copy printed, but I think the strike-through is on the agenda, that 100,000 to 175. So then does that change number 3, 25 to 175? Yes. Okay. And then number 4 starts at purchases exceeding 175?
Yes.
Okay, so those are the things that are going to be amended.
Yep. And I apologize. I should have got a better strike-through one. I did have one that had all those strike-throughs on it.
Okay.
There is a red strike-through in our packet.
Oh, yeah, keep going down. Sorry.
If you keep going
both of
down.
them are in there.
The old one's in there, and the new one's down below it.
Yeah,
You'll see the strikeouts.
I'm just not that far down on my computer screen right now.
Yeah. So please continue,
It's a
Councilor
long
Paulson.
haul. Okay, so I think that when we had this last discussion, we had asked our city attorney to also review this, and some of the language that I see in here regarding people can submit it via facsimile or phone, I think that could be changed, maybe email or in writing. So I don't know if, Brian, if you had gotten a chance to look this over and any potential recommendations. And that being said, currently what we're dealing with some of the purchasing regarding the MEC, we want to make sure that we're doing things very consistently. And so whatever those parameters fall within, and then is the term state awarded, then I got to find it. Sorry, I should have highlighted it. Just the language in there that states it's state awarded, or is there a new language now, state bid award or state bid vendor? I don't know if we're looking at the same document, but it just seems like it's outdated language. And then what I thought we were going to tighten up on that, not tighten up, but on the local vendors, I thought we were going to add to that, and there's nothing added to that. And so the only change that I'm seeing is the strike through with the 175 as an actual change to the document.
What we did is we did discuss with the department heads the need to buy local. Again, we reaffirmed all that. It's hard to put in a bidding document, and Brian can attest to this legally, that you have to use local, because if we have to go out and get quotes or RFPs up over 175, we have to use the lowest bidder unless we did a best value contract. So there's kind of that weird...
I guess that's what I'm asking,
Yeah,
if this
yeah.
was actually reviewed by our city attorney and what the recommendations were, because we're running into a problem right now with the MEC purchasing. And so I want it completely clear what our new policy is stating. So when we move forward, everybody is on the same page and moving forward with clarity and legality.
Brian, could you make a comment or a clarification for us, or for Counselor Paulson and the rest of us, please?
I can, Mayor.
Thank you.
And Counselor, if I don't address your question, please, please ask it again and make sure that I'm addressing it. I have had an opportunity to review the updated purchasing policy, and I mean, by and large, there is, from a legal standpoint, there's no objection. I think it fairly and adequately reflects what the law requires us to do. With regard to the language that's included there about state bid prices, there is some law related to state bid prices where there's certain shortcuts that you can take through a bidding process if you're using the certified state bid price or state bid vendors. So that language still has some relevance. And then as far as the local vendors, it all depends on the dollar value that's assigned to the contracts, about how much, I don't like to use the phrase wiggle room, but how much discretion we can exercise in selecting local vendors. So the lower the price, the more likely we're going to be able to use the local vendors. And then as our administrator has referred, if we do something called best value training, we can use the best value bidding process, which allows you to consider things other than simply the lowest price on a bid, even if it's for the higher or a classic bid type arrangement.
Okay, that does answer most of it.
Okay.
Under item 3, I just found it. So we're changing that from purchases from 25,000 to 175,000. So that's on page 4. Well, it says 4 out of 8. Anyway, so it's on page 4. Number 3, purchases from 25,000 to 175,000. Then it quotes the Minnesota State statute for contracts estimated to exceed the 25,000, that we must consider the availability, price, and quality of supplies, materials, or equipment available through the state cooperative purchasing venture before buying through another source. So does that state that it is required that we go through a state awarded vendor or bid? Or is there discretion?
I believe that there's discretion, and I think what we would do here in this step is we would look to see if there's a local state bid vendor available, but I think that there is some discretion there yet.
Okay, so then in working hand in hand with local, I would say vendors, if that isn't a necessary criteria, they then could be a part of the process.
Correct.
Okay. All right, so I think I'm satisfied with that. And then the only other thing, it says it quotes can be gotten over the phone or facsimile. Do we not want to do phone at all, just because of the miscommunication question, and just say it must be submitted in writing via email or fax?
Correct. There's nothing in the law that prohibits that, but the best practice obviously is to have some medium that's reduced to writing and is capturable in a file.
Okay, and if those changes are made, I would be comfortable moving forward, but I'd like to see that language change. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Counselor Paulson. Counselor Bearable.
Brian, don't run away yet. My understanding and what we've done in the past, if the product or the service is available through the state bid process, if we have another vendor that will match that price, they don't have to be on the state bid list, but if they're agree to match it, we can still use them also if they're willing to take a hit. They don't have to be a state certified vendor if they'll match it, because we've done that in the past, and I don't believe we've broken the law by doing that.
That is very accurate. And the key to remember with regard to the state bid process or procedure is essentially the state has gone out, they've done a bulk bid and they've gotten a price, and if you're able to get, match, or receive from a certified vendor that price, then the state is going to consider you to have satisfied your obligation under the public contracting laws.
And we've always done that with a legal agreement with a vendor that will match a price.
Okay.
Rich is right, we've done it on a lot of vehicle purchases.
Okay, thank you. So are you asking for us just to review it or to review and recommend adoption of it at the next city council meeting, Britt?
I will bring it to the next city council meeting, so no action is needed today with any,
No action?
unless there's other
Just move
clarifications.
it?
Yep.
All right, thank you. Counselor Paulson?
What was that?
Anything else?
Oh,
Okay, very good, thank you. Counselor Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. I would make a motion to direct staff to set up best value training because it sounds like something we should have.
What was that motion?
To direct staff to facilitate setting up best value training as mentioned by the city attorney.
Okay, thank you. Motion by Counselor Johnson for the city to set up best value training for the elected officials and anybody else, right? Or just elected officials? And departments. So set up is there support?
Support.
Support by Counselor Beyondich. Did you get that motion, Pam? Thank you. Moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Do we need a motion or just take no action, just move it to the city council meeting? You'll bring up us the updated adjustments to the final purchasing policy for us to vote upon.
Will do.
Thank you.
Item number 10 is adopt a resolution approving the transfer from the city forum investment account to the city general fund account to cover pay estimates for the MEC project. I'm going to defer to Sherry Erickson, our finance director.
Sherry, if you please, welcome again, and please give us a brief synopsis on this fund transfer.
Okay, this is in regards to the 12 million that sits in the 4M fund right now for the
The money allocated by the
Right.
legislature. Very good.
bond.
Okay.
And I see application number 9 from DSGW is around 2 million coming in. And then with the audio visual, I'm asking if we can transfer 4 million instead of 3 that's written on the resolution. If I can change that to 4 million in.
And the reason for that additional million is why?
I don't want to be using it on the general fund. Right now, between March, April, and May, we have a cash flow issue.
No, I understand that part, but the reason for the additional $1 million is more pay estimates for the MEC?
Just got notice this morning that there's 2 more pay estimates coming for the next council meeting.
That was the answer I was looking for, so
Okay.
thank you
At the
very
time
much.
when we did the resolution on Friday, we thought 3 million was enough, and then we got the pay estimates this morning and realized we probably should grab another million.
So you want to change the resolution to, from 3 million to 4 million?
million.
That's your question. Okay, council?
I will move that we adjust the resolution and authorize $4 million transfer.
Thank you. A motion by Counselor Johnson, supported by Counselor Barnzelli. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Item number 11 is from Street and Alley. We've talked about it quite a few times at that committee. It's the updated snow and ice control policy and procedures.
I have one question. Thank you for the committee and everybody who diligently made these changes and reviewed this policy. There was one section in the policy about the requirement that you can't push snow onto the city streets, and from your sidewalk or things like that. I understand that, but when it comes to businesses on Chestnut Street, when, once the plow comes through, they clean the street, where are the businesses supposed to deposit their snow? If they can't put it on the street, how does that work in that particular part of the policy? Britt?
Downtown people should continue to do what they continue to do, which is put it in the curb line for us to remove it.
All right, thank you very much. Counselor Johnson.
I've since had a thought as I'm seeing snow melt. Should the policy state do not put it around poles? Like snow piles should not be put around poles, trees, or other vertical objects that would make, because that's, you walk by the library and everything's clear except for the pile of snow. So I would like to see that put into the updated policy now. I don't know why I didn't think about it in committee meeting, but we always tell people that, but it's not written down anywhere. So that would be a recommended addition if we could.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Johnson. Counselor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. So we have a gentleman that actually sweeps and shovels for us. So where, in front of our buildings, where do we need to put the snow?
Over the curb.
So that's technically not on the street then?
It's theoretically, you'd put it in the curb line and we'd come grab it the next day. So there is that
Okay.
that day that
So
you're gonna
that's
have.
what we should direct to be done. Okay.
Thank you.
And part of that snow policy is now, they've been doing a pretty good job of, city, of clearing the snow on the main street. So once they come through the big snowstorm, they clean everything up. The businesses come and open up, they dump their snow back onto the curb. So the main, a lot of complaints come from, well, now we have to climb over the snowbank. Why isn't the city clean that up? Well, because they just did clean the street, and now they have to put the snow on the curb because there's no place else for the business to do it. So our goal and objective under this policy is to make sure that our snow plowing cycle is based upon what I see the routes are now, is to, the next day to immediately remove that snow from the curb. Is that correct? Yeah, very good. Thank you very much. Okay. You're looking for, and to adopt the updated snow policy? Okay, Counselor Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. I would move the snow policy forward with the addition of where to put the snow for approval at the council meeting.
Okay, moved by Counselor Johnson. Is there support? Support by Counselor Bearable. Further discussion? Counselor Paulson.
Thank you. I guess this just brings one more point. Since the steam now is shut off on the south side, the alleyways are very different. And where the steam used to dry out our alleyway, and I know quite a few, but, well, I don't drive down alleys frequently, but when I do, and so we have really deep ruts, and it's not thawing out. So is there any plan, once we have no steam, how that alleys will be treated, or will alleys be treated differently coming out of winter with the thawing? And should we sand or salt a little differently, or plan for sanding and salting differently? That was just one comment, and this has been going on since it's been, melting and freezing again.
So I know that the city has an alley snowing policy, and I'll refer to Counselor Bearable.
Yeah, Julianne, welcome to the joys of living with parking in the back on an alley. I've been living with that on 11th Street for years. What they do, if the snow gets too deep and the snow gets too much in the alleys, they come through with the loaders and they clean out as best as they can. This time of the year, they normally can't go through and get the ice out. It's almost impossible, but they have come through now at least once or twice this winter and cleaned banks that you create on the side, and they've taken it down as far as the loaders can get it from driving over. They do plow, during snowstorms, but it's tough. You're going to have, the ice is going to be there. I've lived with it for 20 years. I've been in my house, so.
Did you have steam in your alley?
No, we were taken out long before.
And so that's just something, it's going to be an
And
ongoing.
eventually, it melts. If it gets too bad and too slushy, we've directed people to call Public Works, because there have been some winters where you'll get slush this deep and cars get stuck, and they will come in and they'll clean it out for you.
And they've done an excellent job, plowing and clearing those snowbanks. It's just something different that I've noticed this year, because we don't have any steam in the alley.
Yeah, we lost our steam. We're the first ones in the city of Virginia to lose our steam, so
Thank you.
our alleys ended up that way for many years now. And you just have to hope that, when they come through, they do a good job of plowing, but it does build up each time they plow, because it plows a little bit higher than the concrete.
Counselor Johnson?
Mayor. I'd also, though, remind people that the alleys where Councilor Bearable live are a lot different than in the old part of the town. And what I'm seeing this year is water is now pooling and forming sheets of ice. It's not just ruts. So maybe we can direct Public Works to be more cognizant when they're driving because they're driving the garbage truck down all the alleys. If there's spots that could be identified as ice flows, that's what we're seeing in our alley is is an ice sheet over, it'll melt today at 40, and tonight it'll freeze as a solid sheet of ice. And then that ice is building up. So it's a little bit different animal in the old part of Virginia, but just making Public Works aware and utilizing the people that are already going on all the alleys, I think is enough to take care of that problem.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a motion that's been moved and supported to adopt, or have we not? Pam? We do have a motion on the floor. Okay, is there any further discussion?
I do want to point out one thing, Mayor, that this policy does create a new snow emergency route, which is something we do not have right now.
Which is the next item on the agenda?
Next item would be an ordinance we have to create. And when the snow emergency route goes into place, that gives us the authority to plow or to tow a lot quicker, because the routes will be signed that this is a snow emergency route. And when a snow emergency is declared, you have to get off those designated streets.
Okay, thank you. So it's been moved and supported to adopt the updated snow and ice removal policy, and then we'll move the snow emergency one in the next item on the agenda. So moved and supported with respect to the updated snow and ice control policy and procedures. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, Britt?
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the creation of ordinance 7.15 entitled Snow Emergency.
Thank you. I see it says 3 inches of snow as opposed to 2 inches of snow before.
Yes, the staff, after many reviews of this policy, the staff had agreed that 3 inches is best for our plows. It's when you try to do 2 inches, that's too,
When you're declaring a snow emergency, that doesn't necessarily mean we won't plow before, under.
oh, no. We plow at 3. Our policy says we plow at 3 inches.
Yep.
Snow emergency would be, it's a discretionary thing, but it's not something we'd use every single year. I think we all remember back in, I think it was 2012 or 14, where we had 14 inches of snow in April. That's a snow emergency. We need to get those streets cleared.
And I think it's important for you to create this as part of the ordinance, because where I lived before, they had this ordinance. So when the snow emergency was declared, every media source was available. People were made aware or during the calendar parking things that the snow emergency could be declared. And when a snow emergency is declared, that your vehicle likely will be towed. So
If
make
you are on
sure
the snow
that when
emergency
you're in a
route.
snow emergency, that you move your vehicle to the appropriate side of the street, or into an area where there's off-street in order to accommodate the emergency. That happens when I lived in Minneapolis, in Minnetonka, at St. Paul, same thing. It was a snow emergency, so I'm glad to see this was created today. So, and if, Councilor Johnson?
Mayor, there's a few updates in the beginning. It uses, the city administrator is his, and I think I brought this up before and it just didn't get changed, including the police chief or designee, the administrator, fire chief, police chief, or designee. And do we list in here where we're going to announce that? Where we're going to announce do we need to do that? Is that, so this is the ordinance and then the policy is how we do it. Okay, so if we could just make those.
Yeah, according to policy, it states that we have to declare the snow emergency, then everybody gets a certain amount of time before we start doing any of the measures. And we would declare it on the radio, the TV, and on our social media.
Right.
And will we be able to use the library sign and the New Mex sign as well if we do that? Okay. So if we can just, we didn't make a motion yet, did we? No, so I'll move with the adjustment to the terminology in the who can create who can declare the emergency.
This, just for clarification, this would be a first reading at the council meeting next week.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. Councilor Paulson?
Thank you. Also in the underlined B, the declaration of snow emergency, whenever in the opinion of the city administrator or in his absence, maybe you can change that too. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, we have a motion moved and supported for the snow, motion on the snow emergency,
All support, Mayor.
supported by Councilor Bearable. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries.
Item number 13 is under personnel. We are ready to start hiring our summer student laborers and coaches so that we can get ready for a normal summer this year, unlike last summer.
I'll move that.
Councilor, that was so quick, I can't catch up. It's been moved and supported, moved by Councilor Freely, supported by Councilor Johnson, to approve the advertisement for hire of summer student laborers and coaches for 2021. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Item number 14 is the Families First Coronavirus Response Act extension.
There's a need to do so, you think?
We have had more, because the schools have went back into session, we've had more children cases being potentially exposed. So we've had a few out in quarantine, but not, I think today I had another one. Very sporadic. We've had one here, one there, one here, one there.
Yeah, and I think, and the cost associated with that has been within the acceptable limits, and so moving forward with this is prudent to extend. Okay, thank you. Councilor Johnson.
I will move to extend one more month until the first committee of the whole meeting in April.
I'll support.
Thank you. Moved by Councilor Johnson and supported by Councilor Freelieb. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
The next two items are labor negotiation strategy. So if I may, can we jump to number 17, set the local Board of Appeals and Equalization meeting?
Okay, for Thursday, May 6, 2021, and we have enough trained individuals to sit on the Board of Appeals. Is that correct, Pam? Very good. So for those who will be sitting in or would like to sit in on the Board of Appeals, there's a request to set the meeting for Thursday, May 6, 2021 at 9 a.m.
So moved.
Moved by Councilor Johnson and supported by Councilor Freelieb. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
And one other item under other items of concern, Eric Wedge did text me and said that Tierney Brothers can meet on Tuesday at 9. So if we can have a motion to set that meeting, the special council meeting.
We did set it? We already did? Okay, very good. Thank you. So, good enough. Appreciate it.
The next
Okay.
item would be the discuss city's labor negotiation strategy with AFSCME. This portion of the meeting may be closed.
Okay, thank you. Do you request it to be closed? Okay, looking for a motion to close the committee whole meeting for contract negotiations with AFSCME. Moved by Councilor Johnson, or moved by Councilor Freelieb, supported by Councilor Johnson. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries. I'll just wait a couple minutes. Councilor Freelieb's taking a quick break,